Julie, roll call, please. Can you hear me?
Ms. Bradford,
Yes, here.
Mr. Chantrulli,
Are you here, Mr. Chantrulli? Oh.
There you go.
You're not working very well.
Here.
Dr. Forger, Mr. Hyman,
Present.
Mrs. Khanna,
Present.
Mrs. Stanley, Mrs. Young,
Present.
Mrs. Penna.
Yeah. Okay, meeting notice statement. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Berkeley Heights Board of Education was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. On March 23rd, 2023, a revised notice of the special meeting of the Board of Education was sent to the Star Ledger and the Courier News and was also provided to all schools, PTO presidents, BHEA president, and posted at the administration building. A copy was also provided to the public library and filed with the municipal clerk. Okay. Adjourn to executive session. Whereas the Berkeley Heights Board of Education seeks to adjourn to executive session in full compliance with the Open Public Meetings Act, NJSA 10:4-6 et sec. And whereas the Open Public Meetings Act provides that a public body may exclude the public from that portion of the meeting at which it discusses matters related to those identified below. Matters rendered confidential by federal law, state law, or court rule, individual privacy, collective bargaining agreements. Purchase of lease of real property at public interest could be adversely affected. Investment of public funds if public interest could be adversely affected. Tactics or techniques utilized in protecting public safety and property, pending or anticipated litigation, attorney-client privilege, personnel, employment matters affecting specific prospective or current employees. Be it resolved that the Berkeley Heights Board of Education adjourns to executive session to discuss matters related to personnel matters and legal matters. Oh, you can't hear me? And be it further resolved that the minutes of the discussion out of any of these items will be disclosed to the public when matters have been determined and confidentiality is no longer applicable. I would like a motion to adjourn to executive session, please. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We'll be back approximately about 7:30. Thank you. To return to public session. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, roll call, please, Julie. Okay, fine. All right, so then we will move on to the superintendent's. Oh, I'm sorry. Please stand for the sake, please. Thank you. We will now move on to the report of the superintendent.
Good evening, everyone. My comments will be brief. I will say we definitely have good news, and I tried to share some of it via email and through the booster clubs the past couple of days. For some reason, there was a discussion of AP courses being eliminated, and I can tell you that this Board of Education, as well as the administrative team, shows great value in our AP classes, and we also need to make sure those in the high end of our classes get the classes they do need. Also, with the athletic budgets, I talked to Ann Clifton yesterday afternoon, and we have been able to add about, I think it's $50,000 back into her budget. So those we will continue running those programs, and there has been no discussion of eliminating the middle school sports program. So I do want to give you that good news. And due to some retirements and some other things that have happened within the district, we will now, I know our first initial presentation said 10 teachers throughout the district, and it will be 3 teachers, however, due to low enrollment at our elementary schools. So that does not mean that a lot of people could move in between now and September of next year, and we have to hire. But I do want to share that good news with everyone, and I'll turn it over to Angela for the budget discussion.
Before we move on to the discussion, Julie, do you want to give an overview, please?
Okay. So since the preliminary budget hearing, we have a few developments, one of which is that Dr. Greer graciously parted with some ARP ESSER funds so that we can push those monies into the budget. The exact dollar value is still being figured out, but we anticipate it to be close to $180,000. So with those funds, we will be able to keep all of the help teachers. We have the athletics reduction that we originally anticipated to be $150,000 is going to be closer to $44,000 or $45,000, somewhere in between that number. Additionally, should the board approve it, and we are sort of relying on you approving this, an increase to the athletics fees of $50 per student. So that, along with passing the costs of the pay for it participation fees, so the pay for it fees that go along with paying for your athletic fee, if we pass that on, that would amount to about $46,000 in additional revenue. And you can always obviate the fee by just bringing a check into the district, and we're happy to cash it and take it that way. But if you use pay for it, there will be fees passed along now to the athletic participation fee process. So that is where we stand right now. And just make sure there's nothing else. There may be a small increase, a reduction to the benefits based upon the people who are actually retiring and what they're paying or were anticipated to pay. If that occurs, I just want to make everybody aware that that will change our benefits waiver. It will actually lessen our benefits waiver, which means in order to stay at the 2.45% increase that you had agreed to, we're going to use a greater portion of our banked cap. It is absolutely, we are able to do it. And that banked cap is sitting there. And if we don't use it, $100,000 of it, it will roll off this year. And I just want to open that to you, where we have $107,000 that will roll off if we do not use it this year. And right now you're only using about $10,000 of that. So if you want to discuss that this evening, please feel free to do so, because that's a use it or lose it type thing, but it will increase the tax levy. That's what I have.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to open up the floor to the board for, can you hear me? Going to open up the floor to the board for discussion. And I'm going to start by bringing up the topic. I think we need to discuss courtesy busing. So I am happy if you could all put up your hands when you want to talk, have a discussion, a question, so that we don't talk over each other. That would be great. So somebody want to open up the floor? The comments, questions? Okay.
Yes, I have concerns about the history of courtesy busing and how it was established and why it is continuing. And I'd like to know more about the subscription busing. If we eliminated the courtesy busing, if we could increase the subscription busing, and talking about the routes. And I'd like to know more about our bus drivers. Do we have enough bus drivers?
Okay. Does any? So, well, what I will, I mean, everybody feel free to open up the discussion, but what I will mention is I know at the Finance Committee meeting, the committee discussed, we talked about courtesy busing, and we felt that even though it could bring in some revenue, we felt that at this point in time, this is a process. We felt that just putting it on the budget is not something that we should do at this point. We felt we needed to do an impact study. We felt that we needed to look into the traffic. There were a lot of things that we looked at discussing to figure out before we decided to just put it on the agenda. So if anybody else has anything to add to that, who was at the meeting, Robert, do you want to add anything there?
I was just going to say, in the finance committee meeting, we also started to talk about the history, and then we sort of, I think, moved toward, let's look, because it seems to have evolved over a number of years. So let's just look at what we have now, because the town has changed, student population, traffic, all that. So I think we're moving away. We want to look at it holistically, but I think we're moving away from historical nature of it. Why are some subscription? Why is some courtesy busing? So we're going to deal with that. And we just felt that you can't just make changes without really looking at something completely from all angles. And so that would be traffic, that would be equity. So again, subscription versus courtesy busing. And I think we need some help in doing that. And for the moment, we need some time. So that's why it's not addressed in this particular budget. It was kind of short notice, and we wanted to do our homework before we sharpened our pencils.
So subscription busing courtesy busing is not going to be discussed tonight, but we're going to be doing a study, a new study on that. So that means that any revenues that could be generated will not be part of this budget that we're going to be deciding on April 27th.
Do you want to answer that, Julie?
Yes, if nothing changes in terms of the volume of subscription busing, then the revenue projection will not change.
So courtesy busing will not be part of this budget. It would have to be next year's based on new information that we're going to be doing. And when you talk about an impact study, what is that, a survey, or how are we going to be doing this?
So I think the details are to be finalized. I think what has happened is there's been thoughts and ideas of what could have happened, what might have happened, how did it get there, and it's like, we don't know all the details of how we got here because we weren't all here, but how about we take start from scratch and say, if we were to do busing, like the standard, what does that look like? So that we can see what the delta is, what's the change, what were we doing? Instead of trying to pull apart what we have, come up with a plan and really evaluate it, because I think it's been more of like a little bit here and maybe, is it that group, is that area, and it's not holistic. So out of that finance committee meeting, it was like, how are you going to have a realistic goal and really understand where you want to go if you don't have that baseline of what's the best practice, like what are we supposed to do? And then we can go back and talk about it and review it and see, how we want to adjust it, but our baseline can't be, decades of historical information that we don't necessarily know how it completely got here.
And we do feel that it's something that does need to be discussed. We do feel that it is something that needs to be looked at. And we are going to put it on our agenda to actually look at finding what the next steps are moving forward. But we want to do it properly. We want to do it thoroughly. And we want to make sure, that it's done correctly. So,
and who's going to put together this survey, and when will it go out to the public?
No, when we say survey, it doesn't necessarily, right now, we don't have the plan.
Right.
We want the experts that know about busing and busing situations and consideration to say, okay, here's what we're interested in, but we also need to know what the cost is going to be. So that's really the first step, is who are the experts? How much would it cost to bring in those experts? What would they do? What is, and go. So it's not just going to be, we're going to survey, us, or, we're going to go and talk to see who we can talk to, who has expertise in this, so that when we do it, we're doing it, correctly.
So are we hiring a new traffic study? And
sorry, finish your question. We don't know the details, but we're looking at potentially doing something like that. At our next finance meeting, we're gonna sort of discuss this and determine what the next steps are, what we need to do moving forward, and see what our options are. Looking forward to see what we need to do.
and what is our status on our school buses, our fleet, and our drivers?
Kelly Sheehan, the supervisor of transportation, was kind enough to show up here this evening. Kelly, if you would like to respond, that would be great. Sure, anywhere. I think you need a mic.
Yeah, maybe. No one can see.
Hello. Can you repeat the question?
Thank you. What is the status of our bus fleet? And what is the status of our drivers, the numbers, and how many would we need? And are we getting the drivers that we need?
So our bus fleet, we have 10 buses in our fleet. 3 of them are small buses that hold 24 people. 1 of them is a minivan, and the rest are 54 passenger buses. We have 1 that we will be replacing that we've been waiting for. It takes about a year for a bus to come in now. So we've been waiting since probably September, and we probably won't get it until October. So it takes over a year for it to come in. And then our drivers, we are still short an athletics driver. So we do the best we can with what we have. So we currently have 6 district drivers and 1 open position.
Have we looked at the new housing going up in town and bus routes at all? Or is that going to be part of our study looking forward?
So the new condo complexes, they are fitted within our elementary schools, and they would be along a route if they were to qualify for the bus. So I think the only one that right now is open is the one where Little Flower Church used to be. And those students would not qualify for the bus except for to Governor Livingston. So most of those condo complexes, they would not qualify for elementary or middle school. But certainly to GL, they would qualify.
Thank you, Kelly.
Yep.
So I have one question, because just for clarifying. So I know we're talking about our fleet, but then there's also the additional busing support that we need, right, outside of our fleet. That's not included in this, what you're talking about, correct?
No, sorry, that is not. So
Right.
we contract some of our transportation out. So we have First Student that does a lot of our GL. It does some of our elementaries as well. So they are, as far as we have been told right now, they will renew us, which would be just the cost of living increase. We also use Morris Union Jointure. They do one of our VOTEC routes, and they do one of our Governor Livingston routes. They also do all of our out-of-district special ed routes. We also use Union County Ed Services, Somerset County Ed Services, Sussex County Co-op. Those are also contracted services that we use to support the out-of-district special ed.
So besides our Berkeley Heights buses, we have these contract buses that help us out.
Correct.
Because I know last year there was a problem with buses going to the VOTEC. And so we have contracts that would cover that.
So we have 1 district driver that drives to VOTEC. We have 1 contracted bus through Morris Union Jointure that drives to VOTEC. And then our district drivers do the shared time program. So we go to VOTEC at 10 o'clock. We bring those students back to Governor Livingston, and then we come here at noon and bring them down for their afternoon. So our district drivers do that part of it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And so with the increase, like the cost of living increase, that's occurring. I know last year it was not the cost of living.
They
right?
did not renew us last year.
They
We
didn't
had to, we
right.
had to go out and rebid.
Right.
This year, they say they're renewing us.
So Julie, quick question. Does that mean that the numbers that you have shared in the last budget, in the tentative budget, they're inclusive of the inputs that Kelly just talked about?
Yes, everything is included.
It's all
And the
there.
increase at the CPI, which is 5.86%.
Okay.
And the current estimated out-of-district students as well.
And those numbers change based on who would bid it out. The Ed Service Commissions, they have outside contractors that they use. And then those little bus companies, they bid on the routes that come in.
Kelly, can I just ask, how big is your office? Who do you have working with you?
So I work, we're downstairs in
Yes.
Columbia in the cellar.
Yes.
It's really nice though. And then Clarissa Candelaria, she's our assistant. So she works part-time as well.
And she's.
Clarissa also drives buses.
She does. So she will drive morning routes. She then comes in for 4 hours and then she drives afternoon routes. So we're able to use her as a bus driver as well. And athletics, she does that too.
Questions?
So,
Pam?
so what I'm hearing is that we want to do a study of the roads and the traffic to see how we can best use all of our busing. Is that like not just courtesy busing, but how can we best use our busing for athletics, and all of that is then included, or we're just looking at where we should be courtesy busing?
I would think it would have to be the entire
I was gonna say,
scope of work with
you're looking at- yeah.
related to transport, what is
Yeah.
needed.
So my big concern with not addressing this now is that it's not very fair to many of the taxpayers, right? Like we have people who receive busing for free, and then we have people who don't receive busing, right? And this is, it creates a huge inequality, right? When one person is being asked to pay for busing and the other person's getting it for free because of something, of some reason. And we don't really have anything quantifiable to point them to as to why one person's getting busing over another. So I do feel like we kind of have to put something down and vote on it, right? Like we have to be held accountable for doing this. One of the areas, simple, at Emerson, a lot of people on Emerson get bused because it's, dangerous road. However, someone decided that was dangerous, but it is, right? But all the cul-de-sacs and dead ends off of Emerson don't get bused. Right? So it's not quite fair to all the taxpayers on how that works. And so I feel like by not addressing it, we're asking taxpayers to pay for one person to get busing, but others not. And I don't think that is equitable, especially when we're looking at a budget cut and we're looking at issues like this. Courtesy busing is a want, not a need. And I'm saying that knowing that the most traffic that will be hit is GL, and I live here. So my neighbors will hate me for this because I already have to leave 5 minutes early to get my daughter to her band practice because it's at the same time as GL. And I can't make that left-hand turn. So I just don't think that we can ask taxpayers to do this, especially when we're cutting the budget, right? Like, I know that we want to do this right, but the required busing needs improvement. We have kindergartners getting home at almost 4 o'clock in the afternoon, right? Like my kindergartner could not handle that. I had to go pick them up every day. That creates traffic. If we can't have the people who need busing, who get busing, can't even use it because it's almost 4 o'clock and my child was falling asleep on the bus every day, right? So there are so many ways we can improve busing. We have kids staying after school, waiting for the bus to come pick them up. We don't have enough busing for athletics. Athletics budget had to pay for private busing a couple of times because they didn't have busing. So I know that we don't want to get rid of courtesy busing because we don't want to do that to our family and friends and neighbors here in town. But I also don't think that it's really fair to ask taxpayers to do that.
So I guess step one is the request back to, can you hear me? Is that you're asking for a comprehensive study of transportation so that a budget decision can be made.
Well, I
That
mean, I
makes
think
it-
we should.
we have the first step is honestly, I agree, I understand what you're saying, but we need to get all of the data out and all of the information out. And that would, to say, okay, what are the locations, what are the concerns, and get that back from, I guess, Kelly and her team.
So I did talk to Julie and Kelly, and we have 140 or so high school students that get courtesy busing, and we have 40 who do not. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Now that requires a whole nother bus, so we can't do another 40 kids. We can't, right? On this budget, we cannot do that, especially because it would hurt our athletics even more and our required busing even more. But I also know that that's just wrong. I mean, right? We should be yelling at them for allowing that when it wasn't them who decided it, right? So if we do want to keep courtesy busing, I truly think we need to put it in the policy and say this road gets courtesy busing, this person gets courtesy busing, and vote on it, because someone has to be held accountable for allowing it to be this unequitable for a taxpayer.
And, okay, go on, go on, Tom.
I agree with Pam. the presence of courtesy busing and subscription busing together are fundamentally unjust to ask one group of people to pay and not ask another people to give it to the other group of people, to let other people get a free ride. I want to suggest, and I don't think I want to spend a lot of money on a study, which I think there's a very simple solution, which I'd like to suggest this. For those that have courtesy busing, you send them a bill in the amount of whatever subscription busing would cost and see who signs up.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't.
For those that have courtesy busing now, and I'm talking about everybody, you get a bill equal to whatever we charge for subscription busing. In other words, you get a chance to sign up for what you have now. The only difference is you're going to pay for it. That's fair to the taxpayers. That's fair to all the people that pay for subscription busing. And it puts this issue behind us. Thank you.
For some reason, I think we all agree. Maybe I'm not looking at this correctly. It's just a question of timing that perhaps we disagree on. I think we all agree on equity, what needs to be looked at. And I think we're fundamentally aligned. It's just a question of timing. Do we do it now with basically a lot of great anecdotal information? Or do we do it in an educated way? I've always, and people know this, pushed, take our time out, let's get all the facts. We don't have to rush into anything. I was that way with full day kindergarten and other things. It's not what you do, it's also how you do it. So I'd rather wait a year and do it right than say we did it quickly.
And
I
I,
think Jordan,
I'm sorry, Jordan, go ahead.
oh, and 50.
This may not be additive, but didn't we do studies, traffic safety studies at, I want to say GL and maybe elementaries as well in the last 12 months? And would that be applicable to save us time and or money now? I don't know.
We did, but I think it was based on how we can improve the traffic flow. It had nothing to do with busing at the time, because we do have a significant amount of students who get bused to GL, not from Mountainside, but a significant amount, and we did not factor that into our traffic study that we did for full day kindergarten.
I have a question for Julie. Do you have an estimate of how much cost is in the budget right now as it relates to courtesy busing?
Julie, did you have that number? No.
Oh,
No, I
saw
mean, it's
Kelly's.
impossible. I mean, I don't know if Kelly can respond, but it's impossible because in terms of every bus is mixed. So every bus will likely contain some mandated transported students, some courtesy students, and some subscription paying students. So there's not like, just one or two or three or four buses that we could say, well, we could just eliminate these in total. It would have to be an entire reconfiguration of the bus routes. Kelly, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Not necessarily add anything to it, but exactly as Julie said, that if this were to change for this year, we would need to go out and we would need to ask those people who are courtesy, are you going to now pay for the bus? So we don't know any of that information because we have not surveyed anyone at this point. So if we had a whole bunch of people that are currently being courtesy bused to GL that said, you know what, we're going to take the bus, we would need to look at all of those routes and we're tiered. So we would need to look at the routes and where they start and where they end up. So we have a lot of kids that courtesy bus at Hughes. I don't know that would happen again. It would depend on a lot of things. So we would need to start immediately, and we would need to look at everything, how it's configured, and then build the routes based on who actually signed up, who waived. We had a lot of kids waive their bus last year, 153. So, hopefully that would happen again. We put it out to people to, if you're not going to use it, waive the bus.
It's also a sliding scale, right? So we don't know the impact if it's unlikely that all courtesy riders will now become subscription riders. So we really do need to have a better handle on, does that mean if 60 students are not going to be courtesy riders. I mean, we're taking away courtesy. They're not going to be subscription riders. Can we eliminate a bus? And that's a lot of that is really meticulous routing through the software. So
So what I'm hearing is we actually need to first get the baseline data to see how many kids, where they are, in town, and what type of busing they fit in. Essentially, what we talked about in the finance meeting is without the baseline data, it's hard to kind of make a proposal that'll make sense.
at a minimum, Kelly and I prepared a survey,
Okay.
which we have not put out. So that survey would need to go out, an internal survey at least. In terms of a consultant, then that would be a longer process,
So what I'm also hearing is if we need to even do this next year, we need to start planning for that like right now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we would need to know the scope of work, and that can be discussed at the next finance committee meeting. Kelly has already gone out, and we have feelers with the state and the county and other vendors, and trying to cultivate different companies that may be able to do this. We did have someone who did a traffic study, but that doesn't mean they would be an expert in the busing routing situation. So we need to have some clarity on what specifically is being asked for.
And that wouldn't affect this year, that like the 2024 though, right? We're talking 2024, 2025.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, a consultant in terms of, getting
Yeah.
them hired and doing the paperwork and then having them, whatever the scope of work is, administering that and coming out and looking at roads or the software and things like that, or running their own software. Yeah, that would take time. So given that it's, April 1st almost.
And we have to contract with the
Yes.
first student, right? So it's not like we can.
Right, so that's the other dilemma. So we do need, once we contract or renew our existing contracts, you're held accountable to those contracts. So we're not going to be able to break them in September without having to pay for them. So it is critical that we, make some decisions now.
So I'm gonna
And-
put a plug for board goals. I think figuring out busing is sort of, high up there.
And we did discuss at the last finance meeting to Julie to put this on the agenda, because we do feel that this is something that we need to move forward with sort of now rather than later. So, and just to clarify, Pam, I think we all agree that this is something we need to do. We're not disagreeing with you there. We just feel that it needs to be done properly. We need to do it more thoroughly. What we don't want to do is cause any more chaos with traffic. We want to, do it the proper way.
I agree with the traffic, definitely. But when we're talking like I know from the minutes, right, we could start with phasing it out, right? So we wouldn't give 9th graders, right, courtesy busing this year and then take it away in 10th grade, right? Like, because if we give it to them in 9th grade and now we get a survey and then we take it away from them, right? So I do think we should move forward with phasing it out as we look to how we fix it permanently.
And phasing it out was something that we talked about, looking at doing. So this is all going to be a discussion at the next meeting. We looked at doing it. Anybody else? Any comments on busing? Any more questions, comments? No? Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Kelly.
Anybody else have a question or on any other?
What busing?
No, we're moving on to
Oh,
any
okay.
other topic that anybody wants to bring up on the budget. Deputy, go ahead.
Can we talk about, so in the last meeting, we had the view where there were certain cuts being made to the teacher headcount. Can we talk about what is it that, Julie, in your current version with everything, the puts and takes that you must have been working on, can we get a clear picture of how many teachers do we have, in the elementary schools this year versus what's being projected? Can we get an idea of that?
I don't have that information tonight, but I think
I can,
Dr. Riley can explain.
Yeah, I
some
would
of the
say
ebb and flow.
If you look at our 4 elementary schools, there will be 3 fewer teachers. Our high school and middle school have 2.5 fewer teachers each. But for the majority, for everyone at the middle school and high school, it is based on retirements or leaving the district. It is not us actively riffing reduction in force.
Understood. So one of the other things we also talked about was at the high school level, there were some classes being cut down as a result of the teachers, not being there. Can you provide some clarity on, I know there was an email about the AP classes kind of staying put, but it'll help everybody if we can get some clarity on what is indeed being impacted.
So all the classes that are being impacted are all electives that students do not need for college or for anything they do outside after high school. They have a very low enrollment rate of 2 to 3 kids. So they will be bumped to their next alternative on those classes. And off the top of my head, I do have a very lengthy spreadsheet that I have on my laptop. I don't have those readily handy, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot of classes, but it's obvious classes that haven't made it. Some of them haven't made in years. So this isn't a new thing.
So is it like a number 2 to 5, greater than 10, less than 10?
So anything that's less than 10, the board has to approve. So I will be coming to you in April with 2 courses that AP classes that have fallen below 10. It will go to the curriculum committee first. And so I wouldn't run a class that is below 10 that a student does not need for a college course or, for college requirement or to move forward in a situation. That being said, we do have 1 class that is not AP that we farm out to Johns Hopkins, but it does do, it really services the needs of our higher end students. So I would not in that class. So I think you'll have 3 classes that come to you now that I'm thinking about it, Dave. For approval.
Sorry, I meant the number of electives that are now being taken away. Is it 2? Is it 5? Is it 10?
It's probably about 5, but
5,
most
okay.
of them weren't approved last year either. So it's not because of budget, it's because they just haven't made consistently.
Were some of those classes consolidated? Were like 2 classes that are now being combined?
No.
Go. Yeah. Go ahead.
I would like to talk about the help teachers. You're saying that we would not reduce any of our help teachers that we have at the elementary level?
Yes, they're all the help teachers will be coming back now. Thank you, Dr. Greer, for giving some ESSER funds up.
Does that have any relationship to paraprofessionals in the classrooms for our classified students at all?
Our paraprofessionals are required by IEP. So that is something that I have not touched. That's up to Michelle Gardner and Kevin Mora. So I do not touch that.
So if we need paraprofessionals, we have the budget for our paraprofessionals.
It's something we have to have.
Got
It's by law.
And then we have now the budget for our help teachers to help at the elementary levels, the way they have been used before.
Yes.
Thank you.
Question on the ESSER funds. I think I heard 180,000 number. Is that right, Julie? Did I hear that right?
What I said was we haven't identified the exact number yet. I think it's generally in the $180,000 range. Dr. Greer is working with my office to try to figure out what will qualify for some very particular categories that we need to use the funds for. So we're just trying to shift those funds now, and we have not finalized that yet.
As in we have access to 180,000. If we can find the right category to utilize them, we would be able to do that.
Oh, we'll find it.
Is that right?
Yes.
And is that number in the tentative budget already?
So what we are doing, so the number that was in the tentative budget for ESSER funds was planned to be used by Dr. Greer for ESSER related activities beyond the school day, things of that nature. You'll correct me if I'm not saying it correctly. And it was a discussion that I mentioned we were going to have when I gave the tentative budget. We did have that discussion and we've been working on it. So what's going to happen is the ESSER funds were not tied to anything. So if we now tie them to, for example, I believe we're going to use it for iReady. That iReady, I'm going to just estimate, is $75,000. That will free up $75,000 that I'm now going to use to pay those help teachers. Okay, so that's how we got the help teachers back in. This is how we got athletics back in. So the estimated use of the ESSER funds, not for the planned ESSER activity, which is in Fund 20, but now to use that instead to take some of the pressure off of Fund 11 funds and free up the money to be used for these other items.
Got it. Okay.
Oh, sorry, Robert, go ahead, and then I have a question as well.
Regarding the athletics fee, I've heard that it's going up, but I'm curious as to whether or not we're changing our policy with respect to whether a student can take all different athletics, sports, and participate all year long for the one fee, or are we changing it to per sport fee?
From my understanding from the finance committee, it was going to be, right now it's 150 for the high school. It would be $200 for the high school. For the middle school, it's going from 100 to 150. Yes,
But that's for as many sports as a student
they can
wants to
play all the
participate.
sports they want. Yes.
And my understanding, that's not necessarily true in other districts. So there's a bit of value there for some parents.
That's an annual fee. Sorry,
Is there any chance that we can actually not do that if we have access to these funds? If we have access to the ESSER funds, can we forego the increase?
I don't think so. This will be talking out of the blue here. I don't think we can. We have, when I tell you this week, we have looked at every single fund. And I know I was on the phone with Ann last night and Jordan last night talking about these athletic fees. I think we're kind of at the max of all the stuff we can give back.
Right. So, I mean, we are certainly still crunching the numbers, but I don't foresee that we could, we're estimating that at like $47,000. So, at this point in time, I don't believe so, but anything could change in the next 2 weeks.
So before the 27th, there's still a chance that we could.
Well, it's
work
going to
the
have to be
numbers
before
out?
the 27th because
Way
we've got
before
it.
the 27th,
Yeah, I
yes.
mean, the week before the 27th, I would say we need a full week to document everything and do resolutions and have the state open up the software and make the changes and make sure everything works. So yeah, I'm going to need a little time for that, but hopefully we have spring break coming up, but obviously the week after spring break, with all of this will get finalized in my estimation, I hope.
So Gail, before I get you to ask your question, Dr. Greer, so with regards to the ESSER funds, that's not going to impact the technology infrastructure that we were looking at, right?
No, that's correct. There are other pieces with technology that we're continuing to do. And I want to state here publicly as well that we're looking to still leverage our funds for next year for beyond the school day. We've heard from our stakeholders that this is a great program that they enjoy doing. It might need to be modified, how often they meet and all of those pieces, but looking at all of the allowable categories that are there, we're looking to continue to do that based on the stakeholder feedback that we receive. So technology pieces as well, still moving forward.
Gail?
Could you tell me the difference between an athletic fee and an activity fee? And do all clubs at the middle school and high school have activity fees?
You want to?
I don't know if I know the answer.
I understand there is a club fee, right? Additional.
There is an
to-
activity
to the-
fee.
to the parent.
I apologize that I don't know this offhand. I think there may be a,
Jordan, do you know the answer to that?
Well,
people
I
who have
know- I
children.
know the answer that is no to, does every club require a fee? That's a no, that there are clubs that don't cost anything.
They should. So that was
Well,
that was a conversation
Yeah.
that came up as well, the enforcement issue
Yep.
that I think we have to address. That would be at the club advisor level, ensuring that the club participants are actually paying the participation fee. So that was something that was raised as well.
would
Sorry.
that be part of joining a club to have a participation fee? Is that part of what the club advisor would do, or would that go also through our pay school or?
So the club advisor needs to ensure that the person pays through pay school.
Pay school?
And that would come to my office and then be handled from there. But the keeping of the rosters, just like for athletics, is done with athletics. It would need to be done with the club advisors. And I have a sense that we don't have perfect fidelity to enforcing the participation fees.
Is it a small participation fee, $10 or?
No, I don't believe so. That's also,
I think it's the same fee. So there was a
$100 or $150?
Yes. So I think there was we did have a discussion of breaking that out because we may have some students who only do clubs and don't do athletics
Sorry,
and
I have the answer.
you do.
Okay.
So there's a $75 activity fee at the high school only to participate in clubs,
Very good. There you go.
All clubs,
all clubs.
any club that a
One,
student would
if you want
want
to
to
do
get.
one club or you can do every club, it's still $75. Same with the sports. If you want to do every sport, it's one fee.
And at the middle school, is there a fee?
I don't believe so.
There's an athletics fee at the middle school, but
Right,
there's
just
not an
athletics.
activity.
Right.
And there's no fee for clubs at the elementary level,
No,
right? Only middle school
correct.
athletic fee.
Athletic
and
fee and then
no-
athletic and clubs.
Okay. Club fee at middle school would be 75 also?
I'm trying to get somebody to tell me.
Can we look online?
That's the joy of Zoom. I couldn't hear.
How much?
$50.
$50.
$50.
$50 at the middle school for any
Oh, was it?
club.
Okay,
And 75 at the high school.
okay. That's what we're being told. We can always confirm. I can confirm tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say, I think some of the challenge probably with the enforcement, if that's the word, is, you probably have students who like volunteer one time to help out with the club, to like raise money for the club. So, you'd have to probably think about what does enforcement look like? Can you try it before you buy it? I don't know.
And it's, we do reimburse a lot of fees. Sometimes people pay twice by accident. I did have a student who went once and didn't like it, and we were happy to refund it. But overall, I think we have to come up with some sort of a policy or, I'm happy to have a meeting and a discussion with the advisors to ensure that we're, covering what we're doing what we're supposed to be doing for
And would there-
everybody, and it's equal, right?
And
So it's
right.
equity for everyone.
Would there be a provision for a student who may not be able to afford a club fee?
Always. So
Always with
always.
okay.
Yeah, there is either, if you qualify for free and reduced lunch, you would also qualify to have these fees waived. And anytime you would like, if a parent or a student wants to speak with their principal or their guidance counselor or something of that nature, they can certainly do that. And then the information is evaluated, of course, and a decision would be made either by Dr. Varley or usually by Dr. Varley.
These activity fees, would they be part of a budget revenue or would they go for supplies for the club and activities?
No, so the way revenues work, our general revenues, is it just one big pot of revenues? And then we decide, it funds the entire budget. It funds athletics and transportation and teachers and, supplies. So it's not a direct correlation.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Julie, is the I think it's 46,000 that we'll save on fees through pay for it on athletics.
Earn.
Sorry.
We're going to earn additional revenues of roughly $46,000 by
By
increasing the fees if you so
bundling
choose
that
to
into
do that.
into that. Or is that, and if we are better at enforcing club fees, are there savings pegged to that?
Not yet, because we are unable to quantify. We have just heard tell, as you did just now, that you think there are clubs that don't charge a fee. So that is something, that we're going to have to address, but I can't quantify who may or may not be paying, or if it's just some students and maybe at the discretion of the advisor, they're taking it upon themselves to think that the student needs financial assistance or something like that. But that's why it should go at a principal or higher level to make that determination.
Any more questions? 50?
Julie, I want to go back to the 109-page document if you don't mind. Is it on? Your throats are getting. Can you hear me better? Thank you. So I'm going to go back to the 109-page document, and if I look at
Put it closer to your mouth.
line 51100. I think that is the line item for the 2 additional class 3 officers. I think we heard in the last meeting that the number was about 70,000. Is that right? 75. I think,
75,
yep, I think it's showing 110K increase. So apart from
110K and what?
110K increase in the line, if you pop the document open.
Yeah.
Apart from the officers themselves, is there anything in the budget as it relates to, vehicle maintenance, fuel? Is the
For the
board-
security, for
for the
we
class
don't
three
pay for those officers,
Who
anything
pays?
other than salary.
other than the salary, we don't have any.
We outsource, they are outsourced from the PD,
Right.
the SRO and class 3 officers.
So does the district only pay for the salary and like none of the other, vehicle maintenance or fuel? Is that
100%, just the salary.
just the salary?
Mhm.
So would help if you can just check
I can get back to you on that.
that line, that specific line.
What's the number again?
It's 51100.
And what is it called?
Page 15,
That's the one, yeah. I
What
think
does
it's
it
page
say there?
2 additional class 3 officers.
That's the one, 2 additional class 3 officers.
Okay. Oh, you have.
51,100. That's the line.
Total security. Okay.
So I think if you go into the line level detail, you'll find it.
So we don't, we also pay for security cameras, security camera licenses, security camera upgrades. There are other security
that-
measures that are included. That's a total security line. So it's more than just the officers' salaries.
I understand. And in fact, the security cameras was my next question. It's line 75680.
Okay.
The
I think if you
65,000
want to ask these questions, you can email me. We've had weeks and you did email me many questions and I was
did.
able to respond to them. Except for the ones that you sent today. So I'm happy to research it and look at it for you, but I'm not going to be able to do this on the fly.
Okay, I will email them to you. I have a question on the legal costs then, on the page that has the per pupil number. I think I don't know what page number it is now. If you look at the advertised per pupil numbers,
Mhm.
the legal services cost is $69
Okay.
for the projected 2023-24. Based on what I heard in the last year's calculation, I believe we would have exceeded the 130% of the state average. Are you tracking what I'm saying?
Yes.
So that means, I think we have a policy 174 that makes somebody designated in the district as a person who needs to ensure that all legal counsel is, you don't contact them unnecessarily. They look at all of the requests for legal advice. I'm curious, do you have the name of the designated contact now that
We
clearly
haven't exceeded
exceeded-
it. This is a proposed budget. The way it works is you need to get the taxpayer's guide to spending. As far as I know, they have not published the new one. It will be based on our actual for this year as against last year, as against whatever's published. It's
Okay.
not about the projected budget.
But when you are budgeting for this already,
Mhm.
isn't it? You're budgeting for us to exceed the 130% threshold?
You don't know what number the state is going to have as they're proposed. So no, and it's actuals.
Okay.
Is it actuals for this year or what? Which year?
Yeah. I have
It's-
emailed all
it's-
my other questions.
It's apple to apple.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So the year they publish, if it's 21-22, that would be our 21-22 year. Our data for the 21-22 year.
I would like to open discussion on the reorganization of supervisors to directors. And as I understand it, this is where we would save in the budget $350,000. And looking at the proposal of eliminating the title of supervisors and recreating titles of directors, talking about the workload that would be then responsible for these director positions, as opposed to that level where supervisors have more contact with staff and with the students. How would that be distributed among these new director positions?
So basically, in any kind of reorg and when you lessen admin staff or when you lessen administrative assistants or you lessen anything, people do more with less. And everyone would take on more evaluations, more observations. What I like about this position is it also has the ability for someone to pop in and take over a class for someone. I would like for the people who receive these director positions to have quality teaching experience as well. So they can do that modeling and coaching, but also we're all going to have to take on more work. It's a factor of budget cuts.
So these new director positions would require a certification for the principal supervisor certification,
Yes.
but not necessarily certifications in those academic areas that there would be covering.
It would be definitely preferred. It is something we are still in discussions about, but it would definitely be preferred for them to have, if it's a director of math and science or STEAM, that they have taught math or science or STEAM. Yes.
Could you explain a little bit about our timeline that we have?
So in the state of New Jersey, you have to post positions for 14 days. Within that, so if this is approved tonight, we would post these 3 positions for the next 14 days. After that, we would start an interview process, and the chosen candidates would be on the April 27th agenda. It gives us time to interview and then post for the position. Interview and then post the position on the board agenda.
And these positions would be for September or
Yeah.
August or so, or
July
12-month
July
positions?
1, yes.
July 1
July 1,
positions.
yes.
And these contracts would be negotiated out
Of the BHAA. Yes.
out of the BHEA, BHAA,
Yes,
which is being negotiated right now.
currently, right now.
And do you see any disadvantage to having another separation between teaching staff and students and the administration level of the directors?
Of course I do. And it is a factor of everything increasing and budgets not increasing enough. Yes, I do.
But you think that these new director positions would be able to take on the additional work?
Yes, it's something we all have to do to take on the additional work.
Anybody else got any questions on that topic?
I know there's been some talk about our special education services. I think people are nervous that we're changing it or whatever, but we are very proud of our special education here in Berkeley Heights, and it's something we definitely are promoting, not demoting. So with this structure, we are not going to be decreasing our special services attention, right?
Absolutely not.
So under pupil services, I think is one of the titles.
Yes, the Director of Pupil Personnel Services.
Yes, that would also include our special education.
Yes,
Okay, and we're talking 504s, IEPs,
yes.
anything under that.
Anything
Okay.
that falls under special education would fall under the director. Well, not everything, because we would
Yeah.
have two separate directors who would be handling special education. But Director of Pupil Personnel Services would handle special education as well.
Yeah, okay.
Could you explain how we would handle art and music?
So art and music would be passed to the assistant principals at the middle school and the high schools, divided amongst those positions. Yes,
With the change that we are making here today, we are essentially never going back to having supervisors in the district. Is that fair?
I don't know if I could say never.
Without changing what you're proposing today? As in, if we ever go back to having those positions in the district, it would mean a significant reorg.
Yes. I think I understand what you're asking. You're asking if we ever wanted to, if the board decided they wanted to go back to supervisors, could you do that? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. And what would that mean?
What that means is that you then have to look at the tenure rights of the individuals who held the supervisor positions previously and then put them into those roles. There is, what's that list called? There's a.
Thank you. Oh, the reemployment and recall list. Is that what you're referring for? Yeah. Yeah.
So I have a question related to this. So essentially, if we had a boom of students and growth and we needed to restructure and reorganize because of that growth, then in fact, we could potentially bring roles back if we
Yes.
grew to that extent.
Yes, absolutely.
I'd also just like to clarify that the Director of Special Services position that already exists is not going to change, correct?
It will not change now.
If we did not have to make this cut with budget cuts of $350,000, would we have done this type of reorganization?
Absolutely not.
This is only because we have to cut our budget that we've been looking at this reorganization.
Yes. It also, I think we are cutting from every area except for, of course, paraprofessionals because they are IEP driven. But it is trying to be a fair across the board cut in each area.
So as we're cutting from administration and looking at cutting also teaching staff, we now have a reduction in how we're going to be cutting our teaching staff due to some additional retirees or some funds that are coming in.
Yes.
And could you explain how that would affect class size when we don't have to, when we're cutting we're saving positions, we'll cutting 3 teaching staffs at the elementary level. How is that going to look in terms of class size?
So right now, and this always changes. So right now, our class sizes at the elementary schools are lower than they typically have been. We do have our eye on, we did put one person back into the budget because Woodruff has an increasing kindergarten class size. And right now we have our eyes on a first grade at Mary Kay McMillan that is rapidly growing too. So we could have to add another person back into the budget, which we know could be possibly coming, but our class sizes right now are lower than they typically are. That doesn't mean in August we get a boom.
Our class size is comparable between Mountain Park and Hughes in the 3 through 5.
Mary Beth, do you know this off the top of your head? I know we've looked at class sizes, but I can't.
I'm looking at the principals. Jess, I think your building is still larger than John's. So the class sizes in Hughes are still slightly larger than Mountain Park.
So Hughes, this is the last year of the boom. Next year, I think you're 11 away from Mountain Park. I think they're almost equal. But typically, I think you're going to have a large fifth grade class again, Jess, is that right? So we have to hire an extra teacher. So typically Jess's class sizes are a little smaller than Mountain Park's because she has the larger numbers, like you have to hire 5 fifth grade teachers, whereas Mountain Park, you may have 4 and the class sizes are a little larger there, but we're on our way to being equal.
How would class size affect our inclusion program at the elementary level?
I'm not really sure how to answer that.
For example, we have 2, perhaps we have 2 at a grade level, 2 inclusion classes. And if we didn't have the staff and we would have 1 at 1 grade level, so let's say 5th grade, then there would be an increase in the number of classified students in that class.
Mrs. Gardner does a spectacular job of hiring who we need to have hired based on students' needs and their IEPs.
So we would not be violating any
Absolutely not.
numbers of how many classified students as compared to general education students are per class when we are looking at classes at the K through 5.
100%. We are in compliance.
Thank you.
So with the consolidation of classes, what is the highest number of students that we're potentially looking at the elementary level?
I think right now we have one with 23. I think that's the one that it's 22. We have our eyes on that one because if anybody else, if we have 3 more children move in, we are going to have to hire another teacher.
I still have a concern of high class sizes at that K through 5 level when we have 20, 21, 22, or 23 students and pupils in terms of getting everything done in terms of reading evaluations and time in curriculum, time versus on-screen time versus time with actual lessons and science experiments. So my goal is to keep those class sizes at the K through 5 level as low as possible.
In that same, interest of keeping the class sizes to as low as they can be, has there been any thought to redistrict children from Hughes onto Mountain Park?
No, Hughes and Mountain Park will be almost equal in population next year. This is the last class from the realignment that we did 2 years ago. So they will be almost equal next year. So there's no reason to realign them.
Because historically, Mountain Park did not have as high of a utilization as Hughes. I remember
Yes.
from
But I will
years
say
ago.
all the development in town is on the Mountain Park, Mary Kay side. So I think Mountain Park and Mary Kay is where we're going to look at an overpopulation in the next coming years.
Any more questions on that topic? No? Any other topic for discussion on the budget? Anything else you want to bring up and discuss? No?
Could you just explain a little bit more how the elementary principals will be managing the art and the music?
Mary Beth handles the art and the music at the elementary schools, along
Okay.
with the principals.
The assistant principals would be,
No, Mary
No.
Beth.
right?
Yeah,
But on the reorganization,
that's only for middle and high.
only middle and high school.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so if there are no more questions on the budget? No? Okay. We will then move on to the, can you hear me? The comment section. Okay, so during this portion of the meeting, I know it does. District residents and staff are invited to address the Board of Education on agenda items only. The board requests that individuals state their name and town of residence or school of attendance for the record. All comments should be directed to the board president, and depending on the nature and complexity of the question, it may or may not be answered during the meeting by the administration. If so, the response would occur after this public portion of the meeting has concluded. Although the board may not respond to all items raised during the public forum, all public comments will be considered. The board asks that members of the public be courteous and mindful of the rights of other individuals when speaking. Specifically, comments regarding personal matters are discouraged and cannot be responded to by the board. Students and employees have specific legal rights afforded by the law of New Jersey. The board bears no responsibility, nor will it be liable for any comments made by members of the public. Please note that if any member of the public becomes disruptive during the meeting, the board president may terminate the participant's statement. Continued disruptions may result in removal from or adjournment of the meeting. Each speaker's statement will be limited to 3 minutes in duration. So if you could please come up, state your name. Where the public portion is now open.
Hi, so I'm Susan Pogue from Woodruff School, and I do have 22 students this year, which is the biggest class I've ever had, so it is hard. So I just have a few comments. I have no questions. So with all due respect to the position of the business administrator and the difficulty of that position in any school or township during hard economic times, I did find the blame put on the teacher's contract and special education student costs as a catalyst for the big push off this fiscal cliff as irresponsible and misleading to the public. Teachers' salaries and benefits have always been the largest part of the budget. Just as a reminder, even though we are dedicated to the profession and we are passionate about educating children, this is not a hobby, it's our job. In K-12 education, we know from research that aside from home and family, the single most important factor driving student performance is the quality of the teacher in the classroom. Yet the budget proposal was cutting 14 teachers. I'm glad to hear it's not that many. It would have impacted students. So the help teachers I know are back in the program. And I just want to let people know help doesn't mean help the teacher. It means help every learner program. So I'm hoping that it's not cut this year, that continues for next year because it will impact students. It's also integral to the WIN program. And for those of you that don't know what that means, it means what I need, where students receive small group targeted instruction based on data analysis. We are still recovering from COVID gaps. This is a time for providing more support for students where it matters most inside the classroom. From the words of Lowell Milken, every young person deserves the high quality educational experience that only a talented teacher can provide. What's more, our nation's future strength is directly linked to the effectiveness of our educators. And from the words of an American president, don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what you value. When we see the final budget, I guess we'll see what Berkeley Heights Public School values, and I hope and pray for the sake of our students and our community, it focuses on teachers.
Okay, hi. My name is Bill Paxton. I'm a resident of Berkeley Heights. My first ever school board meeting, and I hope the last, quite frankly, not that much fun. But I wanted to. No offense. Thank you to anyone. So I have 3 children that are in the school district right now. I have one. My oldest son is a proud graduate, 2021, Governor Livingston. And I've been concerned, and I do appreciate some of the reductions to the cuts in the athletic budget. I do have concerns about some of the language that's been used around athletics. I want to first say that we moved to this town because of the academics, and I think that's first and foremost. And I think the job that all of our teachers do, trumps everything else. And yeah, the academics should always come first. But with that said, athletics are a huge part of our kids' experience. And when I see it referred to as just an outlet for kids or even an extracurricular, which I understand it is, I think it does a big disservice. And while I have 3 sons and I'm generally a wrestling guy, I just came from softball. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the impact of sports on women. So of Fortune 500 executives who are women, 80% play high school sports. Girls who participate in sports are less likely to get pregnant, less likely to do drugs, engage in less self-harm, have a more positive body image, are less likely to have eating disorders and suffer from depression less. So this is not just an outlet for them, right? This is transformative in their lives. So I think for us to be cutting sports or, sports are, and not just the sport itself. And I know we're not cutting sports, but even anything in the infrastructure, sports are not about the hoop or the wrestling mat or the goal. It's about the coach. It's about that relationship. It's about the kids. When my kids here at Governor Livingston have an issue, people they go to Rick Ortega. They go to Aaron Lanigan. They go to Chris Roof. They go to Chris Eckert. None of them ever even had him as a coach. They go to people like that. They go to the coaches and their teachers, of course. But this has a profound impact on their life. I think we need to engage stakeholders who are involved in this. We need to have a collaborative discussion with the relevant parties in our community when it comes to how we can partner to make sure we have the appropriate opportunities for all of our kids. I know I'm up on time. I just wanted to say about these, girls. So my daughter is one of the captains of the softball team. She's graduating in 2 months, right? This doesn't impact her. She's going to college. She's playing college softball. But driving up here or earlier for the game, I saw a bunch of 10-year-old girls who were out there playing. This will impact them. And I want those girls to have the same opportunity that my daughter had. And as the president of the Berkeley Heights PAL, that's my responsibility. And I will make it my mission in life to make sure that these girls have the same opportunity that my daughter had. So if we can please engage in conversations with the Booster Club, with the PAL, with Mountainside Baseball, with all these community-based organizations before we make drastic decisions or we use language that could be hurtful to people about athletics and their coaches specifically, it'd be appreciated. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much for your comments and your feedback. Anybody else?
My name is Daniel Long, and I'm a high school senior here at GL.
Sorry, what was your name?
Daniel Long. I'm here tonight to discuss the 2023 budget proposal and the threat that I believe it poses to AP classes at GL. It is my understanding that classes are to be considered on a case-by-case basis and voted on by the board to decide if they should be offered. I believe that this sets a dangerous precedent. While the board may vote to keep many of, or even all of these classes this year, I see no guarantee that the board will continue to maintain this decision in the future. The classes that could go up for vote in the future and thus potentially be in danger include over a third of the AP classes at GL, all courses that we cannot afford to lose. Based on class enrollment data published in the New Jersey Department of Education from 2016 to 2021, the policy would at times require a vote to approve integral classes in the sciences, including AP Calculus BC, AP Chemistry, AP Physics C, and AP Computer Science A. These are extremely important capstone classes that a STEM student looking to enter a selective college cannot do without. It isn't just STEM either. We would be in danger of potentially losing AP Art, many foreign language APs, both halves of the AP capstone program, and AP Music, courses that, again, people depend on to pursue their careers. In total, we run the risk of intermittently losing nearly 30% of the number of AP classes offered, depending on board decisions, conferring irreparable damage to the level of education offered here. Even if some of these courses are offered many years, again, in line with the board's statements that they do not intend to remove classes, I don't think that many people can trust an education system where they aren't confident that they will get the courses that they need. Making a decision now and making some sort of statement that AP classes will continue to be offered, I believe is very important. Additionally, making a guarantee that AP classes will be offered is important for maintaining student enrollment. With the risk of not being able to take the AP classes that they want, more students will choose to go to the Union County Vocational Technical Schools as opposed to GL. I myself was accepted into the magnet program, but chose not to enroll because I believe that GL offers a more competitive curriculum. Had this proposal been in place at the time, I might not have made the same decision without a guarantee that the APs I wanted would be offered. As less students enroll in our school, we will have less interest in APs, especially since these are the strong students that would be going to magnet instead, creating a negative feedback loop that I fear may severely damage the school in the long run. I thus urge you to elaborate more clearly on this policy and state what classes will and will not be offered in the coming years. And I urge you to guarantee that AP classes will not be touched, since it is the AP program that makes GL such a strong school. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Mirabella. I've been an English teacher at GL for 13 years. Thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I'm speaking today because I want to express the great concerns I have regarding the proposed changes to our district's administrative structure. To understand why a teacher would feel fear and confusion over such a change requires an understanding of how administrative responsibilities are divvied up at present. Right now, there are 5 content supervisors. These individuals oversee multiple departments, which means they are responsible for observing the classrooms, monitoring the lesson plans, and acting as the point person for content and curriculum-specific needs for each teacher in each of those departments at both Columbia and GL. In some cases, this also includes specials programs at the elementary schools. Not only that, supervisors are responsible for budget, scheduling, hiring, and overseeing all curriculum guides for each course within their departments. They are overloaded and overworked at present. I would say that I cannot fathom how the work of these 5 individuals could be condensed into 3 positions, but actually I can fathom it. I can picture what will happen. There will be a trickle down of negative ramifications. Teachers will lose the level of guidance, support, and direction that they need to both grow and to effectively manage the problems and obstacles that arise in the world of education. Programming will lose the attention to detail that it has previously known, and thus quality, advocacy for, and further development of those programs will decline as the oversight and organization goes away. Our collective efforts to maintain the excellence we all want for Berkeley Heights schools will not be enough. The district will lose quality educators and administrators as additional responsibilities are added and support is taken away. Students' educational experience will suffer. I know we're in a budget crisis, but this can't be the solution, not if we care about the education of our students and the well-being of our staff. This proposed budget solution isn't trimming the fat, it's the elimination of vital resources. I'd also like to speak specifically about my own supervisor. My supervisor is a wonderful person who has devoted 17 years to this district. She works tirelessly in this role. For my entire career as an educator, she has been a rock for me. She is supportive and caring and smart and resourceful. She is everything you want in a boss. And I am devastated at the idea of losing her. And quite frankly, shocked that our district would even consider letting go of someone who is such an integral part of its success. So to the Board of Education members, I urge you, please reject this change to the organization of our administration. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Christine Tallarico, and I have been an English teacher at GL for 14 years. I would like to express concerns about the intended restructuring of supervisory roles as well. I see evidence on a daily basis of how demanding and full our 5 supervisor schedules are, and I struggle to imagine how these positions can be condensed and still managed effectively. Our supervisors are responsible for completing observations annually, each with corresponding meetings and written evaluations for every single teacher in their departments across multiple buildings. Supervisors are essential parts of the recruitment and hiring process, ensuring that we attract and retain the best instructors possible. They oversee ongoing curriculum revisions. They assist with orders, supplies, and vendors. My supervisor works with the music department and the TV studio, both of which require frequent and time-sensitive purchases, repairs, and updates, without which our students would not be able to progress through these excellent programs. When a sweeping academic change is to be made due to necessity or innovation, our supervisors are the ones on the ground to help with the implementation of new approaches or adjustments in the classrooms, and to ensure that the district maintains a sense of unified purpose while still giving teachers the freedom to lead their classrooms as they choose. As we try to diversify novel titles in the English department, for example, our supervisor reads every single title we suggest and coordinates among all instructors to make sure that texts are taught in a meaningful progression over the years. Teachers are busy and very focused on the needs of their students. So even as an experienced educator, I still need the benefit of my supervisor's outside perspective in helping to continually adjust and fine-tune my teaching to best serve the interests of the district and the community. I too am personally motivated to speak tonight because of the impact that my supervisor has had on me. She saw potential in me when I was a student teacher, fortunate to be placed in this district, and she advocated for me to receive state recognition for my work. Once I graduated from college, she stayed in touch and sought me out as a hire for the department. Through her support, I have grown so much as an educator. I've had the opportunity to be trained at the AP level, and I have been a welcome contributor in discussions about restructuring programs and reimagining curriculum. I feel ownership over the work that I do, and I feel deeply connected to this school community because my supervisor has always collaborated with me, devoting precious time and energy to support me, my programs, and my students. This level of collaboration will simply not be feasible under the new model, and I fear that instructors, programs, and students will suffer as a result. I ask that you please consider the heavy workload and the unique role of our invaluable supervisors as you examine the merits of this proposed change. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Belinda Healy, Columbia Middle School. Thank you for this opportunity to speak. I am really here to echo the thoughts and concerns of my colleagues, but I think there's importance in that redundant message. So we've heard at this point many times over about the valuable support that our supervisors provide to our staff and students, in addition to the countless behind the scenes tasks on their daily to-do lists. Our 5 administrators, supervisors, who are our evaluators, problem solvers, advisors, liaisons, as well as the overseers and advocates of our students' needs, will be increasing the numbers of staff and departments which they oversee upon being whittled down to just 3 positions. It seems that the potential cost to our buildings, our staff, and ultimately our students is far greater than the anticipated savings that this change will incur. If the deed is so far done, I would like to speak to one other thought for your consideration. I too have had the great honor of working under my supervisor for nearly 2 decades. She has poured herself into her supervisory role for almost 20 years. She's cultivated a well-established English department that is only inspired by her push for rigor, culture, and creativity in our classrooms. The music department and our talented student musicians have only flourished under her under her leadership. It's a remarkable thing, really, that our supervisor is so revered by her staff and even the students who reap the benefits of her devotion to the district. She is loyally infused in the Berkeley Heights school system. She's deeply involved in our classrooms, and she is entirely invested in our students. Please consider that while she might be currently displaced by this decision, she is irreplaceable. She should be given the deserved honor of continuing her administrative career as a director in our district. Please consider the consequences of this decision and the potential loss of a valued supervisor before committing to this administrative overhaul. Thank you.
Good evening, Dr. Varley and Berkeley Heights Board of Education members. I wanted to first thank you all this evening for allowing me to speak. For those of you who may not know my name, is Michelle Harpster, and I teach AP Fine Arts at Governor Livingston High School. In addition, I advise our National Art Honor Society and Art Club. Some of you may remember me prior to teaching at GL from teaching at the Mary Kay McMillan Early Childhood Center, Hughes, and Mountain Park Elementary Schools. Earlier this week, I had shared a letter of support in favor of Dennis DeGunis to Dr. Varley and Dr. Greer. I wanted to express first my deepest appreciation for your timely response and wanted to share my letter tonight here among the community and Board of Education. In light of recent events, I wanted to take a moment to reach out regarding the restructuring of the supervisory positions in Berkeley Heights. As an art educator in the Berkeley Heights School District, I have been extremely fortunate to work in an environment that supports and fosters creativity among its educators, students, and fine arts programs. For that, I am endlessly appreciative. I have had the distinct pleasure of working with two very dedicated fine arts supervisors in my career, James Finley and Dennis DeGunis. Although he has not been a part of the Berkeley Heights community for very long, Dennis has gone above and beyond as supervisor of art, science, and computers. From day one, he has worked to foster a collaborative culture and build a community within his departments that work towards shared goals and a sense of camaraderie. Moreover, the support he has shown the budding Governor Livingston artists is truly admirable. He makes himself available and accessible. I would be remiss not to mention that his stop-ins to Studio 23 are something that both my students and I look forward to, whether attending the Berkeley Heights Winter Walk in the rain and cold, or putting together a 6th through 12th grade fine arts festival in the Governor Livingston IMC, he has shown great leadership and commitment. I know that many factors are at play that might be influencing the decision to dissolve the supervisor positions at BHPS. However, I want you to understand what a phenomenal job Dennis has done to seamlessly transition into his role as supervisor. As a staff member, I have felt supported and equally as important as the core content areas that Dennis oversees. He is a valuable and vital asset to the Berkeley Heights School District, and I am immensely grateful for his guidance and support. With that being said, I do believe that Mr. DeGunis has experience in STEAM, as well as his administrative and supervisor certification. Therefore, I would encourage for Mr. DeGunis to continue in his current role. Once again, thank you for your time and allowing me to speak.
Good evening. My name is Joseph Ellis, and I am one of the music teachers here at Governor Livingston High School. In my 7 years in the district, I have had the pleasure of working with some incredible educators. These educators have had the ability to look up to and work alongside a caring, respectable, and supportive supervisor. Whether it be at a concert, in the classroom, performing with the band, or a community event, she is seen lending a hand to staff and students. One of the most important aspects of teaching that I've learned from working under her supervision is that building a rapport with your students and families does indeed matter. Being fun and caring goes a long way. The amount of time she dedicates to her staff and students is mind-blowing. For someone who has worked in the district for 17 years, you would think there would be some slowing down, but not with her. She tirelessly works hard to ensure that her subject areas have the most support possible for us to teach at a high level. She encourages us to be creative and collaborate among other disciplines. Innovative classes like the Deaf and Hard of Hearing percussion class, music and lyrics, and roots and rhythm are one of a kind and unheard of in public schools. This is made possible by her creative mindset and an urge to supply all students an opportunity to experience music in different ways. Having a supervisor who holds a degree in music benefits the program in its entirety due to the sheer fact of having the content knowledge to support the students and staff. Managing purchase orders, instrument inventory, supply lists, and planning concerts is only the tip of the iceberg. Without someone going through all of this with a fine-tooth comb, many day-to-day operations will be lost. As a teacher and musician, I've had the opportunity to teach and perform throughout many school districts around the country. The strongest music programs have been ones who have supervisors with a tremendous amount of knowledge within the content area and supply students with many different performance opportunities within the district and outside of the district. Thank you for your time and allowing me to speak.
Good evening. My name is Elizabeth Connolly, and I'm currently a senior here at Governor Livingston. I'm here to talk about what multiple faculty members have talked about before me, especially in relation to the fine arts and music. My time here at GL has been defined by both of these programs, as I've been involved with the band since my freshman year and spend a decent amount of my time on that. And then I've also become involved within the fine arts now. They've given me an experience that is indescribable and helped me turn me into the woman I am today. It's taught me the meaning of hard work, determination, and perseverance, and it's also given me moments of fun and joy during hard days filled with an AP course load. However, the plan for the new supervisors does a disservice to these. Both of the supervisors have been incredible people and help the district run smoothly within their departments. Not only has sorry, I just forgot where I was reading. These supervisors are incredible people and have helped shape their respective art departments in the way they are today. They not only help the faculty, but have an impact on students, which can be felt at a level. Their loss would be something that is indescribable and hard to fathom, and something that won't only affect faculty, but will affect the students and the education they receive here. I'm not the only student that holds this belief, and there are multiple other students here tonight that, while they may not be speaking, share the same belief that I do. We all want the future of this program to be successful, and with the way that the supervisors are going to be restructured, there is a concern for that. The arts are vital to the success of GL, and we want to see them succeed, and hopefully that my statement tonight helps you reconsider, because I am a student and I know that their losses will be felt. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Winnie Grover and I'm an 11th grader here at GL. I have a few questions regarding classes and the electives that we're looking at cutting. So my first question is, why is it necessary to cut classes? And why is that an important fact for the budget that we're looking at? You said that the classes that we're looking at cutting are necessary. We're wondering what classes are necessary for cutting according to what is necessary for college. And I was wondering, what classes do you signify are important as college classes? There's electives that I know that you wouldn't consider, such as creative writing or intro to ABA, that people need for college, that colleges look at for specific career paths. And I don't know that it would be fully considered, that has been fully considered, that some of the electives that we're looking at might be important for specific student career paths. So please consider that in your decisions when you think about cutting specific classes. I also would like to talk briefly about the foreign language classes. There's been speculation about Italian, AP French. And I would like to point out the fact that although these classes in the past have had limited attendance, the AP classes for the students that take them, colleges look at these classes and it is very serious for admission. If you're going into a major in a foreign language, these classes are very vital, and having these accessible to you in high school is very, very important for the students that take them. I am one of these students. I would be taking AP Italian next year, and me and my classmates find this a very, very important class, and the thought of it being threatened is something that we are very concerned about. So we would just like to put that forward and make that part of the consideration for why these classes are so vitally important. And lastly, I would just like to thank you all for considering all this time and hearing all the people speak. It's not easy to talk about these things or to think about these things, because we don't want any of our classes taken from us. But at the same time, we do understand that there are decisions that have to be made. So I would just like to point out that all these things that we are talking about here today are because that we care about the people, the supervisors, all these people very much. And we would like you to just consider it from our point of view, how important it is to have these instruments in our lives, especially for your college-bound students. The school is so good in that area. So please consider that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Evening, my name's Doug Rower.
I'm here in support of my daughter and the other students that are brave enough to come up here and talk and vouch for their concerns. I wrote a note, Dr. Greer, earlier about the electives. I'm a little unclear about the criteria of what you're taking to cut classes. 63 million we're approaching. I don't think any class should be cut, no matter if it's an elective or no matter if it's AP. It's $63 million, guys. We could do better than this, okay? So I'm gonna implore the board. I don't think this resolution is ready. I think you either have to abstain, say no, or send it back for more thorough review. It's just simply not ready. You have too many emotions and too many people too concerned about this. If you vote yes, then the only thing you're doing is saying that these kids right now are collateral damage. That's the only thing I can say.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Olivia Judica, and I'm currently a sophomore at Governor Livingston. The elimination of a couple of supervisor roles will only be a detriment to all GL students. These supervisors have helped craft such fundamental aspects that make GL unique. Additionally, the low attendance AP classes should not be eliminated. Students should not be penalized for wanting to take college-level courses that challenge them and expand their knowledge, especially due to the fact that GL prides itself in the wide array of AP courses offered. It is extremely unfair to deprive students of the ability to expand their knowledge, especially when their future education could be impacted. The decision ultimately has the potential to alter the career prospects of many students here at GL, as well as the district's reputation due to college acceptances. Besides AP courses, cutting SEL electives, including the arts and musics, further undermines the necessity to support every aspect of a student's academic life. This also severely compromises the diversity of the school. Essential arts classes that embody DEI, including the deaf and hard of hearing percussion course, are in danger due to this plan. It is the Board of Education's responsibility to improve the quality of learning of students and to enhance their overall school experience. Removing courses that honor inclusivity, hard work, and mental wellness just punishes the student body for something that is not their fault. I also have a few questions, and they are, even if AP classes aren't cut, will all of them still have their own periods, or will they be combined classes to be split, such as having both calculus, AB, and BC in the same room at once? And then additionally, would electives such as the music or arts, would many of them be taken away, especially if they're vital to fulfilling graduation requirements? And then my last comment is that specific steps need to be taken, and I think the district needs to know what course of action will happen, like tangible steps, instead of very vague statements, because otherwise we are unaware of our academic futures, and we are trying to take charge, and we really want to know what is being improved within the district. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Hi, thanks for the opportunity to speak. I'm Steve Hess. I've been a math teacher here at GL for 20 years and the volleyball coach for 6. I did not plan to speak tonight, so I'm going to be less articulate than all the fine people who have spoken before me. So I'll keep it brief, but I just wanted to share concern about the plan to get rid of the supervisors and replace them with directors. And I think you've heard how much all these people, these veteran educators, have contributed to the school community. All of our supervisors have worked very hard, are very integrated with the faculty and the students, contribute a ton, and work long hours outside of their daily schedules. Really are fundamental. And my question for the board is, if we're going to eliminate these 5 positions and replace them with 3 new director positions, it seems that we've not only made that questionable decision, I hope you've given that careful thought, but it seems like we've set it up so that we can't even allow most of them to really compete for those positions by having this requirement for a principal's certificate. Wouldn't we want to open the field up to the broadest set that we can and see what candidates we get and consider all of their attributes? I didn't hear really careful justification for why we need a principal's certificate to do this job. I would think someone that has extended experience in the district and knows what we're about, knows the faculty very well, is going to have a huge leg up in being effective over bringing in several new people from the outside who'll have their own attributes, I'm sure. But I feel like we're taking probably the most qualified people and just pushing them aside and hoping that we'll do better with new people we don't know. So hope you'll consider that carefully. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Jean Ringwood. I live at 37 Forest Avenue. Full disclosure, I am also the school nurse at GL. I'm here to speak as a community member to all of the board members. Mrs. Penna, in review of, or in light of this reorganization plan, have all the board members reviewed the job descriptions of all of the supervisors?
We'll answer the question at the end if you can continue.
Oh, okay,
please.
okay.
Sorry.
If you have, that's wonderful. If you have not, please do. In addition to that, it would be very much appreciated by myself as a community member for you to reach out to all of these supervisors and learn from them what they do. They're a whole lot more than a sheet of paper. In addition to just the supervisors, please include the directors that we have in our district. We have a director supervisor. We have a director of guidance. We have a director of athletics. Everybody, every one of those people works more than the list that's on a sheet of paper. And I'm not saying this in a detrimental way or in a disrespectful way. I do not. I'm here because I probably voted for each and every one of you, but I believe in this district and their support is so encompassing to all of us, to the student body. They make their departments, us and the students rise to a new level, and they figure out ways to get us there. I understand we have budget cuts to make. I get it. And I assume that you're all looking at the budget from the top to the bottom. And I hope that you take the time. We don't have to make that decision tonight. If you decide to abolish these positions tonight, they won't come back. They won't be here for our kids. So please give heavy thought to this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Robert Nixon. I am the principal of Governor Livingston High School, but I'm here to speak to you tonight as the president of the Berkeley Heights Administrators Association. We're here to speak to you because we understand that the Board of Education has made it clear that one of its goals of this budget is to reduce administrative positions as part of that budget. The BHAA represents 17 positions, including all principals, assistant principals, directors, and supervisors in our district, including 16 people, 4 of which who are significantly impacted by the resolution you are going to be voting on shortly this evening. We shared a correspondence yesterday in support of these positions and these individuals, as we believe they play a pivotal role in helping the Board of Education accomplish its strategic plan that has student achievement at the center of it. Having not heard a response to our correspondence or receiving any feedback on our questions or requests, I want to share the correspondence this evening. Dr. Varley and Ms. Cott, members of the Board of Education, please accept this email on behalf of the members of the Berkeley Heights Administrators Association. Purpose of this communication is to respectfully request that you do not approve the resolution for the administrative and supervisory reorganization. The BHAA has questions about this decision, concerns for its impact, and feels that other options could be considered before committing to this action. The agenda stated that this plan will increase efficiency and improve the implementation of the district's curriculum and performance. We struggle to understand how this will occur, considering that current district supervisors oversee English, history, world languages, special education, fine and performing arts, science, math, practical arts, computers, music, media specialists, special projects, and DEI. These departments encompass responsibilities grades 6 through 12, and in some cases, K through 12. Will the individuals assuming the newly created roles be responsible for all of the observations and summative evaluations previously completed by the supervisors? Will they oversee the curriculum for all of those disciplines? Who will work on those department members to order supplies, develop SGOs, PDPs, or PLCs? Who will provide training and content-specific professional development? Has the Board of Education reviewed the current job description of the supervisors and asked about the plan to accomplish all of those responsibilities detailed in the documents? We'd like to request a meeting with the district central administration as well as the Board of Education to discuss alternative cost-saving options that do not include the drastic loss of administrative staffing from the BHAA, which would directly impact the quality of programming and education our students receive. We take great pride in supporting the staff and students of the Berkeley Heights School District, and we are extremely concerned that the decision to approve this administrative and supervisory reorganization, I know the rules.
My name is Jessica Nardi. I am the current principal of Hughes School, and I'm here representing the Berkeley Heights Administrators Association. I'm just going to pick up where Rob left off. We understand the current financial state of the district, as well as the difficult position that Dr. Varley is in as the superintendent who is tasked with navigating this. We are asking for the time and opportunity to share information and ideas to help all parties make informed decisions and ultimately reach a better outcome. In addition to a meeting, we would like to request a copy of the job descriptions for this new director position. Our understanding is that they should be approved along with this resolution. We thank you and we look forward to being a part of the process to develop a more effective solution. Sincerely, the members of the BHAA. And I would also just like to add, Mr. Cinciulli said something that really struck a chord with us earlier when we were discussing busing. He said that he would rather do something right as opposed to quickly. This position has come across very quickly for us. We just learned about it on Monday. So we would like to request the time and the collaboration to do it correctly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. Hello, my name is Nicole Manganelli, and I am a resident of Berkeley Heights, but I am also a teacher, math teacher here at GL. I did not plan to speak tonight, and I am not going to be as well-spoken as our English teachers, but I did want to speak about my supervisor, Mr. Ziobro. I have taught for 26 years, and I've never taught without a supervisor. I have no idea how that would ever work. I email Mr. Ziobro probably 10, 15 times a day, all day, all night, and he answers me all day, all night, all weekend. He has been supportive of everything I have ever asked of him. He goes out of his way to research new initiatives. He was an excellent teacher when he was a teacher, and he brings a lot of that knowledge to us. And the entire department is very upset. We really honestly don't know how we would work without him. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Aaron Jolly. I'm a pardon me. I'm a sophomore at GL. My sole purpose in speaking today is to stand up for all of the supervisors who are now at risk of losing their jobs or being repositioned. I know that there are many budget restrictions and other factors that are a part of the reason that their jobs are now at risk. And while I'm not in the know of the specific numbers of the budget and that what the district has to meet, and frankly, it doesn't really matter to me. I think before we get into numbers, I think you guys have to look at the morals. I find it unthinkable that you're cutting, you're okay with cutting the supervisors who not only one, have families and rely on this district to help provide for them, but two, who make it much easier for not only all the teachers, who many of which I've had, but also the students. So have developed special relationships with many supervisors and educators here at GL. And Mr. Ellis is one of them, who he spoke earlier, along with his supervisor, Ms. Scott. She has been, I've seen her around many times, and she has been nothing but helpful for me. And I know that she supports Mr. Ellis, and along with Mr. O'Sullivan, the other band director, just as equally. So I urge the Dr. Varley and the rest of the board to rethink this decision to make these cuts. I think that the only thing that it would do would be harm the district, harm the students, and most of all, harm the teachers, who are what keep the supervisors and teachers are what keep the district running. They're educating our generation, and more importantly, more times than not, putting the students ahead of themselves. I've had times where teachers I don't even have taken the time to help me with a subject that they're familiar with, or like I said, Ms. Scott helping me out with a percussion part way back when. So I've had experiences since elementary school, where I can go back since elementary school and refer to supervisors and teachers who have helped me throughout my education career. And so that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Hi, my name is Shobhit Arora from Berkeley Heights. I'm here to just kind of understand, I'm not too familiar, but I have been reading some numbers. So just want to kind of understand the budget, which is being, the proposed budget, which is expected to be passed or is being proposed. It's around 63 million for the year for our school district, which is one of the highest in the state. Our neighboring town, which is New Providence, which is equal student district, approximately 2,500 students that we have, they have a proposed budget of 52 million, and we are proposing 63 million, which means 11 million more, right? So my question is, what are we doing extra in this school district that we need that additional 11 million? I know one is busing, we do. But busing obviously cannot cost $11 million more in a year, right? So that's my first question. Now, after hearing everybody here around, I'm like really a little surprised. They're talking about budget cuts here. And then hence we eliminated supervisory roles, which I guess the students and the educators were not considered, and it was a hasty decision. This is just based on this evening's hearing, what I've heard, but I could be wrong. So why is that being done? Whereas our proposed budget is actually one of the highest in the state. And we are not in the top 3 school districts in the state. Like, I don't know if we are like 20th or 30th, I don't even know. So we don't have, when I compare with other school districts, my friends' kids, what they do in middle, high school and all, I mean, we are nowhere comparable to the facilities that they get, whereas we are one of the highest. Our per student spend is one of the highest in the state, not the highest, one of the highest. I would like to know, what are we doing here, right, that we need those kind of funds, which are so high per student and overall as well, annual spending. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Excuse me. My name is Steve Chiroka. I am a math teacher and a computer science teacher here at Governor Livingston. I have taught here for 23 years. As my colleagues have spoken about Drew Ziobro, I'm going to speak to him not just in regards to him as a mathematics supervisor, because in addition to mathematics, he also supervises me specifically in computer science. For the first 15 years I was in district, I basically was the computer science department here at GL. Under Mr. Ziobro's supervision, the program has grown to the point where we had to hire an additional teacher. So we have effectively doubled our department. He has brought in new courses. AP Computer Science Principles is one of those. He suggested that. We talked about it. He was supportive of that. And now we have a thriving program in that as well. Additionally, students about 6 or 7 years ago were interested in starting a robotics club and a robotics team. Drew was a driving force behind that team and its increasing success as we move forward. His background in engineering was an integral part in that team growing. So I would ask the board to reject this reorganization proposal and keep very good people in our district. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Joe Maselli. I am a math teacher at GL. I am also the theater director for the fall play and the spring musical. I want to thank you all for any of that support you gave to us over the past year. It was great to see some of you at the shows. We had a fantastic year with the theater program. And I wanted to say a lot of it has to do with the staff we have working on these shows. The students are amazing. You see the students on stage and we're so proud of them. They did an incredible job. But what you don't always see is the people behind the scenes that really made it come together. We have two fantastic new music teachers working with us, Joe Lorino and Luke Robleski, our choir teacher. And Mrs. Tracy Procaccini is my producer. And then pulling it all together is our supervisor of theater. Somehow, I don't know how she got that role, but Lori Scott, who has just been incredible to work with over the years. And the things that work so well work because of that teamwork and how amazing she is in her role there. I also have, being the theater person and the math person, I also get to work with Mrs. Ziobro, and seeing the amount of work that both of these fantastic people do for this district, making me strive to be a better teacher, a better director, a better influence on young people. It really strikes me when Dr. Varley, you say, when we lose people, we all have to do a little more because we have to do that. And I agree, but that's when you have 100 people and you go down to 98, you all do a little more. When you have 5, you down to 3, that's a lot more. And that implies that these people are working at like 60% capacity. And we know that's ludicrous. I don't know how we can be as effective with such a drastic drop in the supervisors. So I urge you not to go with that proposal. And I want to thank the people that support us in our roles. Thank you.
Good evening. Sorry, I didn't plan on coming up tonight. My name is Joe Voorhees. I'm the TV production teacher here at GL. I've been here for 16 years. I'm more of a storyteller, and that's kind of what we're going to go through right now. What I want you guys to all think about. Are you happy with our district doing the bare minimum it can? You heard what they said about Drew starting the robotics program. You've heard about what all of our supervisors do. I don't care how good of a director you are. You can't take on the work for that many people and still be as effective as what we currently have. I'm in charge of the theater, not in terms of what Mr. Maselli does in terms of directing. I am the guy that's the caretaker for it. The Kenneth Stiefel Theater is my home. We use that theater to make money for the district. We do rentals. I'm up to, I think, 8 rentals outside a year. The reason we do that, my supervisor pushed me to do that. I actually work in another district as a technician. I told her what we were doing. She said, can we do that here? I said, absolutely. She pushed that to make sure we can do rentals. We've never done that before my supervisor said to. The TV crew has a trailer we use for shooting football games, graduation, lots of other events. That started when I talked to my supervisor and said, hey, look, here's something I want to try and do. She goes, why don't we do it? I don't know. We just never did it before. She goes, all right, what can I do to help you? What can I do to push this forward? The trailer we have zero cost to the district. Things that we stream from here and the basketball games, zero cost to the district. We went out, we found friends, we found family, we found donors. My supervisor is the one who pushed all of that forward to make it a reality. You could be the best director in the world. You don't have the time to make sure I can rent the theater out. I can do this. We can do that. We can make the students better at what they do while trying to figure out how the robotics team is going to work, while trying to figure out how special services is going to work. You're going to have a breaking point where you just go, that's that. I can't do anymore. I have no more left to give. And that's what's going to happen with this. Please consider what we have now, what we have in the future, and where this is going to go from there.
Thank you.
Hello, Natasha Jolly, Berkeley Heights. So in the spirit of, having to do a little bit more when we make cuts, I want to ask the superintendent's office and the business administrator office, what little more will you be doing, given that you have no cuts in your staffing? So, and just to, read out loud the positions, in the superintendent's office, there's the superintendent of schools, two assistant superintendents of schools, assistant to the superintendent, confidential administrative assistant to the assistant superintendent, executive assistant to the superintendent, HR specialist. In the business administrator's office, you have the business administrator and board secretary, assistant to the business administrator, board secretary, supervisor, buildings and grounds, budget, accounting and reporting specialist, bookkeeper, confidential administrative assistant to the business administrator, accounts receivable, benefits reporter, payroll specialist, accounts payable, transportation supervisor, assistant to buildings and grounds, transportation coordinator, and food service director. I think some of those positions obviously are singular and need to stay, but why do you need a specialist for payroll, accounts payable, accounts, and a separate one for accounts receivable? So it feels like that if we're all going to do a little bit more, that you might require a little bit of cutting in those staff positions as well. I had some also specific questions around the line item budget things that I did email the board and Ms. Cott that I have not received feedback on. So, but I won't get into those now. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hey. Good evening. Sai Bhargavi Akiri, Berkeley Heights. So following up on what Natasha said, I think we have, and in comparison to New Providence, we have 23 administrative positions compared to them having 14. And they're asking for 52 million roughly, I think rounding it up, we're asking for 63. I'll ask some of my questions first and then I have a comment. So on courtesy busing, can we get the total number of students currently being bused? What's the budgeted number in the 2023-2024 budget for courtesy busing? Which schools do the majority of courtesy busing students go to? Is it Hughes and MKM? And how does voting on who gets courtesy busing or creating a policy as suggested by a board member make it equitable? On security aid, how much are we getting from the state this year? And does the security aid money necessarily have to be used towards SROs, or can that be used for teaching staff? Now, coming to my comments, at the reorg meeting, I believe on January 5th, all of you read the ethics code and you agreed to abide by it. So per New Jersey State Statute 18A:12-24.1 Code of Ethics for School Board Members, the first A says, I'll uphold and enforce all laws, rules, and regulations of the State Board of Education and court orders pertaining to schools. Desired changes shall be brought about only after thorough legal and ethical procedures. That's A. C in the ethics code says, I'll confine my board action to policy making, planning, and appraisal. And I will help to frame policies and plans only after the board has consulted those who will be affected by them. Based on the comments by Mr. Nixon and Mrs. Nardi today, looks like they were not consulted. So my question is, did you consult the supervisors and the staff whose positions you're planning on abolishing or eliminating tonight? And if you didn't consult, are you in agreement that by voting on this tonight, you're most probably committing 2 ethics violations? It's up to you. Thank you. Do the right thing.
Shauna Williams, Berkeley Heights. I'm seeing something here that I've been seeing for a long time, pretty much ever since I started coming to these meetings. And that is, you make decisions without involving the people in the community, without involving the teachers. Oh yeah, you better start the timer, okay. Involve us first. That's what we've all been asking for the last 2 years. Involve us first. Let us know what you're thinking. I really don't think that's too much to ask. And a lot of this can be avoided if you just let us know what you're thinking beforehand. Talk to us. Okay, it's really what we're asking for. I would like to make a comment about the legal fees and also the numbers. If we're waiting for what the numbers the state puts out every year, they're always going to be lagging. All right, if the state puts out their numbers from 2021 in 2022, and we're forecasting for 2023, that's an avoidance of the issue. We can absolutely do better with our legal fees. All right, you can start doing that by looking at getting a new lawyer who gives you good information. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. I'm Nick O'Sullivan, and the past 34 years, I've had a couple titles here. I've been a student and music teacher, band director, and other things. I'm speaking tonight as Nick O'Sullivan, Berkeley Heights person. I didn't plan a speech tonight like many of my colleagues, but this is a great warm-up for tomorrow night. I have a new role tomorrow. I'm best man at my brother's wedding, and I haven't written a speech yet. So Tim, if you're watching, I will have a good speech for you, promise. Because I didn't plan a speech, all I want to say is this, that thanks to the Board of Education, I've had close to 9 years of continuing education as a teacher and a couple degrees, not getting into that. But one thing that sticks out through all of my education is the importance of administration in supporting teachers. And when there's a reduction in that number of ratio of administrator to teacher, it just seems like a less of support. And speaking personally to my supervisor, I've had to contact her very much less through the years. After 16 years being here, hopefully once in a while I have to call her. But it's nice to know when I do call her at 11:37 at night, she'll answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Steve Grigeski, Berkeley Heights. I want to talk to you a little bit about through the way I view this kind of like, as a dad, I view this through the lens of what's best for my daughters. And I'm concerned that when, the budget is really a time for you to be awesome and to explain how you're the boss of this wonderful budget that you're putting together is going to bridge the gap that we got from COVID. It's going to make us #1 in the state for the 63 million that we're spending and taking from all the taxpayers. And that we're going to not have to worry about discovering that less than half of the kids are proficient in math. And that when we roll out new math programs, I'm sorry, but they should roll out and be very efficient and should help improve everything. And I would like to know that the focus of everything here is not so much as in terms of preserving jobs, which I understand is an important thing. It's really, what are we doing to make this school the best? And I'm hopeful that we can all work together. And if we can get the supervisors back, and that only gets us less than half passing math proficiently, in my mind, that's a fail. So we need to work together and figure out how we can spend this 63 million and make us number one. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Anna Angelova, Berkeley Heights. I have a senior GL. Didn't plan to speak, but listening to all this, I didn't know about the supervisors. It seems to me like it's like Microsoft or Google. First thing CEOs do, cut off people. We're not a corporation. Why should we go first to that line item? So with that, I kind of have another comment that's about the athletic and what was the other fee? The club fees. At GL might be $100, I think. Last year, sometime mid-year, I realized I didn't pay it. I went on pay for it and wasn't there. I had to send emails. They had to tell me to tell somebody else before it was added, and I was able to pay. Maybe nobody else did pay that year. I don't know. So if you go through it and make sure people are paying it, maybe it will be like 1,000 students, 100, $150 each. It's a lot. And the other thing I wanted to mention about is the course selection electives at GL. I don't know if you know about it, but people like rank 12 classes. And then they don't get any of them. So maybe some classes, some electives there are kept at full kind of capacity artificially. Maybe the teacher is, I don't know, cannot be fired or whatever it is. So maybe you should look at that and see what's the story with those classes. Maybe there are classes that are not needed at all, and we're just keeping them there, like intro to accounting. Who wants to be an accountant? 30 people? I mean, my son was placed in it. I'm sure most of them didn't want to be in that class. So if there are other classes like that, maybe those could be eliminated and not the fun classes that he didn't get, like some art class he didn't get. He's not an art person. He just felt that's a fun class instead of intro to accounting. But so just as ideas where you can get a little bit more dollars, and maybe we can do, I don't know, GoFundMe page, maybe something like that, I don't know, some ideas. Maybe you can ask the community to come up with ideas for how to raise more money and don't cut people. So, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is it on? There we go. Good evening. I'm Melissa Moore. I'm one of the school psychologists at the secondary level, and I'm here to speak in support of my amazing supervisor, Mr. Mora, a person that everyone in special education relies on to do their job effectively. The restructuring of the administrative responsibilities of the supervisor of special ed seems to go against the metrics of what is needed in our community of learners. The reality of our public school system shows that there are more significant needs present in our schools. Our referrals for interventions have increased, and our students' well-being is paramount in a post-COVID world. Mental health concerns are real and they're growing. The removal or limiting of this role and other supervisor supports at this time is not rooted in our community's post-pandemic needs. If this position is altered, there will be direct and significant impacts to the teachers, case managers, related service providers, paraprofessionals, special needs programs, parents, and most alarming, students in our school district. To cut or lessen this role with restructuring into a larger role is to remove a strong voice of support for those who are not typically heard. Mr. Mora would be less accessible, and Mr. Mora is responsible for supervising the special education teaching staff, supporting case managers, supervising special education programs, providing assistance and guidance to all of our special education staff, as well as assisting with scheduling and monitoring of our special education programs at the secondary level. Further, beyond the immediate presenting needs of our community, this position has been pivotal in moving our 6 through 12 programs toward inclusive education, something that's made our district stand out at both the county and state level. So I ask the stakeholders of our school district to reconsider the proposed changes. It is important for those voices to be heard. Please reconsider the proposed removal or restructuring of the special education and the supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you.
How about now? Good evening, Todd and Jerry in Berkeley Heights. It's an interesting meeting we're having, and I think that it's long overdue. It's much needed, but I think where we have to try and separate ourselves is the board has oversight over the administration. And therefore, what the administration is proposing with this budget, you have a fiduciary duty to decide, does that make sense or does it not? And unfortunately, when we talk about money, well, we have an attorney sitting here. I don't even know why, because this is a community meeting and you're making good money. We're paying you to watch us. So let's talk about the fact that all of you as board members work for us. We are the community members. We are the constituents. We are the stakeholders. We are the tax. Really? Okay. So at this point, I applaud every teacher, administrator, and parent who has come up here to say, hey, this doesn't work. But are you going to do something about it? That's the question. Are you going to listen to the community who asked you to be here? Because we don't feel that you are. The community doesn't feel that they are. Do you know how hard it is for somebody who's an employee to say to their boss directly, I don't agree with you?
Mr. Najarian, can I ask you please to lower your
Well,
tone?
you know, honestly, it's a bit ridiculous. Okay, let's talk numbers then. 62.9 million. That's a lot. That's a lot. Oh, it's only $294 per homeowner. Well, you know, talk to some homeowners and see how they feel about that. It just keeps going up. New Providence, 51.9 million, 10.9 million variance between neighboring towns. What are we doing wrong? And we're talking about cuts? Seriously? Administrative staff? One of the other parents just mentioned it, listed all the positions. We have 23. New Providence has 14. They're getting it done. So honestly, I feel like we're having another meeting just like the redistricting. All of you are looking at everyone, you're hearing everything, but you're not going to do anything. So are you going to take that difficult step and challenge the people that put this budget forward? Not be part of them, challenge them and do your job to actually make a difference. You have students, educators, and parents all here telling you they disagree. It's time to listen.
Anybody else like to come up and have comments?
Hi, I'm Karin Sicoli and I have two kids in the Berkeley Heights schools, one a freshman in PC and one in 7th grade. And I'm concerned about textbooks. My 7th grader doesn't have textbooks. So I'd like to know about that with the $60+ million budget. Just seems like I should be able to help him at home using a textbook. Do we not have money for textbooks?
Okay, if there is nobody else who is coming up to make a public comment, I'm going to close this portion of the meeting, and we will do our best to answer the questions that were asked. If for some reason we are not able to answer the questions, you can email us and we'll try and respond to you that way. So let me try and recap everything that was asked tonight. Ms. Grover asked a question regarding why is it necessary to make the cuts and the reason for this decision. So, Yvonne, did you want to just clarify that? She was also concerned about the AP classes with the foreign languages.
So we have a $1.5 million deficit, and there are cuts across the board. It's not that anyone was targeted specifically. It was, we have to come up with 1.5 million. And as we talked about in the budget presentation earlier this month, 85, even probably more than that, of our budget is salaries and benefits. So in order to cut such a large number, it's generally salaries and benefits is where you go. As far as the board vote for AP, it is a policy. It's 2312, I think, off the top of my head, that I approve class sizes from 15 to 10. And anything below 10, the Board of Education must approve. And so there are 2 AP courses and then one, I think it's multivariable calculus, that the board will have to approve moving forward.
I think you've already answered this question, Mr. Grover.
Can I just say something about the AP? So the AP, like even in the policy, it hasn't been changed since 2006. So this is right, like the board has to vote on classes under 10, like that's been like that for a very long time. And then with the AP world languages, like if we're going to offer world languages, we're going to do our very, very, very best to have AP world language classes. Like we're not going to cut those even when they're really, really low. And in the years past, we have approved those even at really low numbers, because if we allow you to take French, we want you to be able to take French all the way. So I do want our students to know that we do take our AP classes very seriously. And in these particular numbers, we know that they pretty much come every year.
Okay, Mr. Grover had a question, and I think you already answered it. He was unclear of the criteria to cut classes, which I think you've already discussed. Ms. Judica had a question, and I just want to clarify that under no circumstances during any of the Finance Committee meetings was there ever a discussion about cutting AP courses. It was never on the agenda for discussion. So I just want to clarify that. She had a question that if AP classes aren't cut, will they have their own periods? And she also had a question, if electives and music and arts, will they be taken away?
So this upcoming year, none of the AP classes will be, well, hold on. I think we may have some fine arts classes that are combined. Off the top of my head, Mr. Nixon, okay, I think we may have some fine arts AP classes that are combined. However, the remainder, am I right here? The remaining classes are all separate for next year. There have been times where we have combined AP classes with honors classes, but this coming year, we're not doing that. As far as right now, there are no, keep me honest, arts and music classes that we have cut. There's one that had one student in it that we did cut, but the remainder are running.
Mrs. Ringwood had a question, and she wanted to know if we had had a discussion regarding the reorganization structure, and we had, with the full board, did have a discussion during exec session. So we have had that discussion. A gentleman, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. He talked about the $62 million budget and he compared it to New Providence. And his question was, what are we doing with the extra funds? So Julie, I don't know if you want to clarify that. It's a smaller district.
So, yeah, so I can tell you that it's very hard to compare district to district, and I think we should focus on Berkeley Heights budget. That's one. But two, when you talk about New Providence has 3 buildings. We have 6. Right there, you're talking water, electric, right? Just keeping the heaters going, principals, 2 extra principals.
2,200 students,
Yeah. So,
Not
right, we have
2,500.
150 more at least.
2,200,
Yeah. So we
2,200 students.
yeah, so we can definitely talk that. I also know, right, like if when looking at our budget, Westfield's going for a vote for 4.85 to increase their budget because they know they don't want to cut things and they still don't have full kindergarten with that vote. So it's expensive and they're at $111 million budget for their school district, and we're trying to keep up with them, right? So we are a very small school district doing a really amazing things. But as far as New Providence goes, we're a very different district, even though we are close in numbers.
Please, can you sit down? Sorry, I'm going to finish my questions, please. Thank you. Mr. Carey had a couple of questions, and I don't know if the administration can answer this. She wanted to know the courtesy busing total number of students. She wanted to know the budget numbers for busing, and she also wanted to know what schools courtesy busings go to. I don't know if anybody can answer that question.
I think courtesy busing goes to every school but Woodruff, nope, Mountain Park, Mary Kay. Okay. There's the only 2 schools that are not being served, right? No, I'm just making things up. Okay. Mary Kay and Mountain Park have no busing.
Okay.
I don't know. I just made it up. I don't
So okay. No.
So, but sorry. So I did talk to people about the courtesy busing, and I think we're at like 200. The school that would be most impacted would be GL. Those are the 2 questions that I wrote down. Because there's 144 and about 200 in courtesy busing. So GL would get the most. Yeah.
Okay. I know these questions have already been answered through multiple times. She wants to know the state aid and can it be used for teaching staff? And sorry? Oh, security aid from the state. Sorry.
Even though they give names to these items like security aid or transportation aid or special education aid, they do go into one bucket and they provide for all budget items. All budget lines are supported by state aid.
Thank you, Julie. And the final question from Ms. Sikoli was a question on textbooks. I think you may have answered that before, Dr. Greer. Do you want to just clarify?
Thank you. Yeah, so we do have textbooks, but there are also budget items when we have online digital editions. Those are not free. Those also incur a cost as well, so that you're able to log on and look at the different programs, the textbook itself. So some courses have actual physical textbooks, some have online resources. And I know in our science classes, we're moving towards Open SciEd, all of those pieces. So just because there's not a physical textbook doesn't mean that there aren't resources that are available to be able to provide support as you're at home. I think the question was about, I want to be able to help my child. How do I do that? There are ways to be able to help log in. Always reach out to the teacher if you have questions about the resources that are used itself. We're happy to help.
Okay. We are now going to move on to the agenda items. So we're going to administration. And I would like a motion to approve resolution A, all board members. Yep. I would want to approve it, the administration.
So moved.
So moved, and we can have a
So
discussion.
so can we now have a discussion? Yes.
Yes, second.
Yes, Tom, go ahead.
No.
Okay, I'd like to move the table
Resolution A.
I would like to, I mean, having. Oh, sorry.
Okay,
Oh, sorry, to table it?
so Tom made a motion to table it. We need to have a second.
Oh, I want to have a discussion about.
What are we
Okay,
doing?
okay.
Discussion or?
We second it so we can have a discussion.
So I want to second that, just listening to everything that we heard today in the meeting. And frankly, some of it was a little bit of a surprise that some of the information was just made available on Monday. I would want to take the time to table this.
Well, I think there was an offer from the BHAA to have conversation. And I think, I mean, if that conversation hasn't happened and there's some insight and input and collaboration that can happen to, you know, for alternatives, I mean, is that, I don't think that's a bad thing. I know there's a time frame, but I also,
Yes, so this would be tabled for the, I mean, you would not have the ability to come back and do this. So, we have the May 15th deadline. So there is, unless you call another board meeting to do it again, this is it. This is your last hurrah. And then you would have to pull the 350,000 from teaching staff. So, I mean, I'm happy to keep the administrative staff, but I also want you to know that this would be coming. This has to come from people unless you pull courtesy busing. It has to come from people. That's the only place we can get $350,000 from.
Question for Francis. So I know a couple of people had mentioned about them have the administration having a meeting with the board, but we can't legally do that, could we? Because it would be a quorum.
You could have the personnel committee meet with select representatives.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So if the board was to have another meeting, when would that need to be? In order to make this timeline work?
If you decided to go and what's on the agenda, you would have to give 14, so the positions are approved and then there's 14 days for the positions to be out for people to apply. And then there's time for interviewing, and then it has to be prior to May 15th before anything happens. So it can't be done at the April 27th board meeting. You have to back up from the 2-week window of a position posting, and then time for interviews to happen, and then time for the selection of the candidates. And there's negotiations and everything within that. So I'm happy to keep all the administrators, don't get me wrong, but you are looking at $350,000 now that we have to find.
So the meeting would need to be within the next 2 weeks, is that what you're saying? Board meeting, if we tabled it.
Excuse me.
Somebody mentioned that 14 training compared to 14 of the progress, right? So we can cut that, why not? What's the logic there?
Move on.
So public session is closed, that we're having a discussion with. So as a board, we've had a motion to table, we've had a second, we've had a discussion. 15. Do we want to have a roll call to decide whether to take?
Can I ask this one question? So this might be a dumb one. Sorry if you said it prior. How many of the current supervisors would hold the certificate to qualify for the 3 to be potentially posted director roles?
I think 4 of them hold it.
With this position, could they potentially apply for it?
Absolutely.
Okay. So are we going to have a vote to decide whether to table it? So Julie, roll call, please.
Sorry, one more question. So if we're tabling it, the next course of action is
An additional meeting in 2 weeks.
to discuss alternate ways to find the funding, or what are we doing in that conversation, I guess, is my question.
I believe that the meeting would be then to do what we're doing tonight, would be to vote on it. So within those 2 weeks, we would need to meet with the administration or whatever it is that we are going to do, and then be available to vote on it in 2 weeks at an additional board meeting.
How much time do you need for the budget? Are we pushing your
we're gonna-
budget to the window?
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna have to give me alternatives, because if you schedule something, I have to plan both ways. You're gonna have to come up with 350 somewhere else in between.
If you look at, like, yeah, and I want to put it in perspective for the public as well, as that is probably 7 teachers, 350,000,
I would say 6, it depends on benefits.
6, depending on benefits.
So just to follow up to that exchange, we seem to be automatically translating the dollars to the teachers without thinking of other elements in the budget which have not been which have not been answered. I'll go back to the medical benefits whacked, 43% increase from the last number in the audit. I think we need to expand the space we are looking at to find the dollars. I just want to say that out loud.
Robert.
You're on the finance committee. Have you asked that before now?
Excuse me, Robert.
This is highly inappropriate, Robert, so I'm not gonna answer it.
Thank you.
We need to remain respectful, please. Okay, so we have a motion, we have a second, we need to vote.
A motion to table administrative resolution A. Ms. Bradford,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli,
No.
Dr. Forger,
Yes.
Mr. Hyman,
No.
Mrs. Khanna,
Yes.
Mrs. Stanley,
No.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
and Mrs. Penna.
No.
Motion passes. Yeah, it's 4-4.
Motion passes with 4-4. Motion passes with 4-4.
8 is a problem. Yeah, yes, you need 5.
Did you say motion passes 4-4?
I'm sorry, the motion to table passes.
Okay.
Did.
4-4 is passed.
Oh. Wait,
Now I'm confused.
so we would need 5 for the motion to table to pass, so it does pass.
So the motion to table does
Did
not pass.
So then we need to go back right to the resolution. So then we need to go back to the resolution to make a motion to approve resolution A.
So moved.
Thank you. I'm assuming there's no more discussion, so roll call.
I'm sorry, who seconded?
Robert.
Robert moved it.
Did anybody second?
Oh, wait, I don't think we did, correct. That was fine.
Second. And
Okay. Roll call, Julie.
Motion to approve resolution A. Mrs. Bradford,
No.
Mr. Chanchuli,
Yes.
Dr. Forger,
No.
Mr. Hyman,
No.
Mrs. Khanna,
No.
Mrs. Stanley,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
no.
Mrs. Penna.
Yes.
So the motion fails.
Okay, moving on to business. I would like a motion to approve items A through B, all board members, items C to F, Berkeley Heights only.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? No discussion? No?
I
Okay,
have a question.
okay.
This is about the 5 projects that we are seeking to submit the ROD grants for, correct?
Yes.
Have we confirmed that the scope of the 5 projects is 100% eligible for state support? Because that is a requirement, I understand, for the grant. We have confidence that it'll be 100%.
Well, I'm not going to say 100%. All these projects fall within the categories that are permissible to receive ROD grants. Now, the state is then going to take the pool of everyone and going to approve some and not approve others, but you don't know until you apply.
Oh, I get that. I just want to confirm because we are paying a firm 7,500 to write the grant proposal, isn't it? I just want to confirm that we have confidence that the scope of the project is eligible for that.
According to the architects, yes, they all qualify.
Thank you.
Okay, so if there is no more discussion, and we have a roll call, please.
Ms. Bradford,
Yes.
Mr. Chanchuli.
Yes.
Dr. Forger,
Yes.
Mr. Hyman,
Yes to items A and B.
Mrs. Khanna,
Yes, for all.
Mrs. Stanley,
Yes.
Mrs. Young,
Yes.
Mrs. Penna.
Yes. Okay, so that brings us to the comment section for the public on any topic. So if anybody has anything on any topic, please come up. No?
Hi, Sai Bhargavi Akiri. I think, thank you for actually doing the right thing and at least not voting on this to abolish the positions at such short notice with the administrators union coming and saying they were informed of it on Monday. I think our district has been very reactive. We are not proactive. And if Dr. Worley, if we need to trust you and we need to trust the administration, you need to do a better job of presenting this data. The resolution itself was not very clear. We can and should. I think there is a considerable analysis. I think that needs to be presented, and especially to the stakeholders that are being impacted. These are your colleagues. They have been teachers. They've been here for years. Imagine if your job was supposed to be cut with a resolution and you were informed like on Monday. Would you like that? Like put yourself in their shoes before you propose or recommend to cut and abolish positions that have long-term impact. And I also take offense to the fact that when board members are asking you, what happens if we don't vote on it? Oh, we need to look at teaching staff. And I think that's not all right. So why are you automatically
Mr.
going
Carey?
to teaching staff?
Ms. Carey, can you please address me, not Dr. Valley?
Okay, so I'll tell you, Mrs. Penna, you cannot allow for a resolution like this, where the superintendent recommends situations like this, where you didn't even let the administrators union know until Monday. And would you be okay to do the same thing with the administrative staff? And why aren't we looking at the administrative staff? We have two assistant superintendents. We have assistants to assistants. So why are we automatically jumping the gun to the teachers? I think we, the people, need an actual answer. And if one of the board members said we need to vote on courtesy mussing to make it all right, I don't think if it's an inequitable solution, you cannot just vote on a policy to make it okay. And if the board members recognize we need to vote on a policy, I think the board also needs to vote on legal spending. What was the use of having the attorney here? Have you ever voted on it? It's been on over a year. And you just say that it's the board president's discretion. What is the added value to taxpayers for having the board attorney present from 7 o'clock to it's almost 10, almost $165 an hour. And here you are talking about increasing athletic fees. In $63 million, we can't find money to pay for athletics. I think it's a shame. Sorry.
Thank you.
Don McGuez, Berkeley Heights. I want to thank the board for making the right decision. It was refreshing to see a debate and the difference of votes, and people sort of disagreeing and, it was just very good to see. And it was also very good to see Berkeley Heights come out. Oh man, here we go again with this thing. It was also very good to see Berkeley Heights come out, students come out, parents come out. This is what American government looks like. Board members should not be admonished for asking questions in public. That's ridiculous, Robert. It's absolutely ridiculous. I can address whoever I want, free speech.
Please address me.
Sure,
Let's
Ansel,
make-
I'm sorry. All right, I'm sorry. That's fair. I agree that central administration should be looked at. I would encourage the board to look at the superintendent's office and the business administrator's office for the cuts, and to leave supervisors and teachers alone. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, oh, sorry.
Just for records, my name is Shobit Arora, because last time you couldn't get it, Arora, right? So hopefully you'll remember next time. Just to answer you, ma'am, right? 63 million. Yes, you compared with Westfield. Do we know that, whosoever did, right? Okay, I mean, I'm addressing to all the board members, honored board members here, right? 63 million, and you compare to Westfield. Westfield's ranking, can somebody compare with Berkeley High School ranking? That's number one. New Providence was just an example. I also mentioned, which I think very convenient, it wasn't even brought up. In the state, where does Berkeley Heights spending per student and annual budget compares, right? Whole of state. I don't remember how many like counties and districts we have, but we have significant numbers, right? So I hope we can compare that. New Providence is the nearest one. I think it's one of the closer ones in terms of number of students. That's why. If you see, if we can go line item wise, then the amount that we are spending here in Berkeley Heights, I mean, I would be happy to spend 65 million altogether if we as taxpayers are getting something out of it for their kids going to school, but doesn't look like so far when I compare with any school nearby, right? So I think it's not just New Providence, it's across the state. It's bad. The numbers look really, really bad. And again, to repeat, why not we consider administrative staff? Why do we have so much fat in that? Why? We need an answer for that. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nobody else coming up for public comment, I will close that and I will move to new business. Okay, so under new business, we had board goals process. I know that the board has previously discussed about having board goals. So because we've never done this before, I reached out to the New Jersey School Boards Association representative, Patricia Reese, and I asked her for some suggestions and guidance on the process to establish them. She suggested that we go on to the New Jersey School Boards Association website. She said there is a section called Evaluation for Superintendent and Board. She suggests that we do a self-evaluation for board members. She's suggested that we have a deadline of May 1st to have that done. She said she will then take all the reports and she will come to our May meeting and discuss that with us and help us establish board goals. So I would suggest that we do that so that we have some kind of process in place for actually establishing goals.
I make a motion that we go ahead for the self-evaluation.
Can you explain or talk more about the self-evaluation? What are we self-evaluating?
I don't know the actual tool, but she said there are multiple questions that you will be asked. I think there's comment sections. She said based on your answers and that what she will be able to determine what we as a board are looking for, and she will be able to come back and have a discussion with us regarding that.
So the tool will take our inputs and potentially come up with a recommendation. Is that what the expectation is?
You go ahead.
If you go on the NJSBA website, the online self-evaluation tool is up there. So you can go ahead and take a look at it. Every board, this is the first board that hasn't done it that I've ever worked for. And you talk about your fellow board members, you talk about if you're collaborative, if you feel like you're getting enough information and all that stuff. And then the representative will call all that information and figure out what you as a board deem to be the most important needs amongst the Board of Education.
Got it. Okay.
She said then she'll come, she'll talk with us about it, and then she'll help us to establish our goals.
So by
So
that timeline, we are probably in the month of June to establish any kind of goals?
No, she's planning on coming to our May 11th meeting,
Okay.
obviously with the discussion, and then we'll take it from there.
So May 1st, we need to complete the online
Yes.
evaluation, and May 11th, she'll be able to summarize.
May 1st, she asked us, please, as a deadline, so that she
Okay.
can have time to collect the information, and then she'll come to the May 11th board meeting and have a discussion with us. All right. If there's nothing else under new business,
Is,
I would.
I think we need.
My
There we
apologies.
have to vote on, I
Yeah.
move business A through F.
What?
Did we? We
You
did the
did.
second one?
Did that.
Yes, we did. Yeah, we did. It was done. We
The
did.
ROG
It was
grant, we
done.
did the ROG. grant?
Yeah,
Oh, I
it
don't
was.
recall.
Yeah, it's done.
You
I know,
voted,
we're
yeah,
tired.
you voted yes, by the way.
So if there is
I-
no more,
I just have one,
sure. sorry,
one
Deputy.
other item outside
Sure.
of the board goals.
Sure.
Do we have some sort of a target date for the referendum? Haven't heard anything for the past couple months.
I have to take that to committee and have a
Okay.
discussion about that.
Okay.
So nothing at this point. If there's no more new business, no, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All in favor? Sorry, second.
Second.
Oh, I
All in
did
favor?
second.
Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.